let's rock and roll, dude. Oh, my.
Chugging
The nerves are getting to him. What do you got in the other cup?
water.
Yeah, right. You got a little liquid courage in that cup, dude. All right, let's rock and roll. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Just a Taste. And today, ladies, gentlemen, we have a special episode for you. A little taste of the plumbing world. We have our first guest of the podcast on. Let us introduce Mr. Matt Woodcraft.
Hold your applause, please.
Which is my boss, I guess, technically. So this will be interesting. We'll see how it goes. I might get fired depending on what we say, but Matt, welcome. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Doss bailed again tonight doing beans. So now we're going to get into the world of plumbing, I guess, a little bit. I don't know. So here's kind of my layout, I guess, for this segment episode. Is more interview style. I ask you questions. I don't talk as much, which will be weird. That probably won't happen. I'll still probably talk a lot. But we have Matt. If you don't know, the company I work for, GH Mechanical, we merged with him, what?
April 1st officially.
April 1st. So he had his own company, Life Flow Plumbing, came on board with us. But in the realm of that, he had his own business for, how many years did you have your own business for?
May would have been 10 years.
10 years.
Just shy of 10 years.
One full decade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So with that, what was, what's like your origin story? What's your villain origin story?
Story.
Like, how'd you get into... I don't know. People ask me how I got into plumbing, and I was just a broke college kid, and I needed money. Like, was that kind of a similar story for you, or were you like plunging a tard one day and just like, hey, I could do this for money?
I could do this full time.
Well, what do we got there?
No, I would say so. I knew I wanted to work with my hands. I enjoyed working with my hands. I thought I wanted to get into carpentry, like woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
I still enjoy woodworking, trim, cabinetry, that kind of thing. So I went to Brownstown Votech for
you?
CTC.
Really?
Yep.
I went there too.
Yep. My junior year, I did the half-day program.
Yep.
So 2-3 hours a day, and that's what they call the construction cluster. And then you're in there, and you take a couple months. I guess it was about a month per construction class. So you had masonry, electrical, framing, all that kind of stuff. And then I did plumbing, and I was like, I actually kind of enjoy this. And then I was talking to the plumbing instructor, Mr. Gibble. Shout out, Mr. Gibble. And he was like, oh, yeah, I find work for all my students, 90, I think he said like 98%. And literally the only ones he doesn't find work for are the ones that don't have driver's license. So get your driver's license, kids. So I was like, wow. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, I don't want to do framing because I'm in the elements. I'm building the house that, I want to be sheltered in. So I was like, plumbing could work. It's probably some tight spots and some nasty work. But yeah, I could do it. So then that was junior year, and then senior year went full time to CTC.
Is that still at the Brownstown campus?
Yeah, still is. Yep. But then I was hired by Haller Enterprise my summer of my junior year. So I kind of got a taste. Just a taste of
just a freaking taste of it, just right in your mouth.
I could do some, okay. That summer, and it was hot, sticky, whatever. But I was like, yeah, I can still do this. So
were you doing like remodels? What were you doing with
that? So the summer, actually, the multi-units there across from the library, like on the backside of the Effort Library. And across from GSM, whatever. Yeah, basically was there all summer. So we did new construction, 2-story multi-family homes, multi-family buildings, or whatever. So yeah, literally was there for slabs, for rough-in, and some of finish, not a lot. That was basically my whole summer, which is what, 9 weeks, 10, 12 weeks, something like that. So just there all summer long. And then went back to Votech full-time, and then got hired by Haller my senior year there in the summer. And then I actually did advanced placement.
What does that mean?
So advanced placement is
that like you're on the spectrum a little, or like you're smart, or what does that mean?
Super special. No, so you have the good grades. and keep up with all your what they call task work or basically book work.
Okay.
And it was task work, hands-on work. If all that was up to snuff and up to par, then you could go to an employer once a week for like, I think it was like for 2 weeks, and then if that went well and they were good, they would bump you up to 2 weeks, 2 days a week, and then eventually full weeks, and then you reported back to school every other Monday, and that could start as early.
So you're only in school 1 day a week then?
Yep, 1 day a week, and that could start as early as February.
Nice.
So I was basically out working.
So what is that? February, March, April, May, June, like 5 months.
Yeah,
out of
5 months
year.
of work.
Dang.
Started little by little, and then building up. And yeah, so that's
what was your starting pay with them?
Oh my word, $9.25.
Was that pretty decent for the time?
It was. Yeah, I talked to some other buddies of mine, and yeah, $8.50, $9.25. That was about.
Oh yeah.
Some other plumbing guys, and then electrical. Yep, that was
like
about
you said, that was
wage.
pretty decent. So that's what we're paying at GH. So if you want a job, $9.25. It's still above. Is minimum wage still $7.25? Did that get bumped up?
I think it's $8.50.
$8.50.
I think it's up now.
I know those Californians have been
California, it's like
they've been trying to raise it up, but interesting. So you went to the Votech.
Went to Votech.
Did you commute or you ride the bus?
I biked.
Okay, you freaking whatever. Where'd you live?
So at that time, we lived at Parkview Heights. Yeah, Parkview Heights Road, which is in Akron.
Oh, okay. So that's actually not that far.
No, I biked 3 miles one way. My junior year, then my senior year, I got my license and drove. Halfway through my junior, I guess, end of junior year, beginning of senior year, I got my license and then drove. But yeah, no, I biked.
You want to hear something crazy? I had my license, so I was the youngest, like in my class, because I was right on the threshold where I would have been the oldest in the grade below me or the youngest in my grade. So I only got my license like in senior year or something. But then I bought a car, which is an RX-8. If you don't know anything about RX-8s, it's a rotary engine. And I don't even know what it means. It's instead of pistons, it has a rotor that kind of spins around combustion.
Oh, wow.
But apparently, those engines are known to have engine problems. If you don't drive them like a race car, they seize up. If you drive them for short distances, you need to like warm the engine up. So great for a 16-year-old kid because you literally had to be at like 4,000 RPMs cruising speed. So you're always going fast. But I had a car. I had a sweet, like for high school, it was dope.
That's
like,
a Subaru, right?
No, it's a Mazda. Mazda RX-8.
Okay. Got it.
Like it would have been a sick car to have in high school, and I didn't drive it to high school because my house was only a mile away, and like I took the bus every freaking day with having a car. And I don't know, I was so mad. I was like, this is stupid. And then like one day I drove. I was like, why don't I do this more often? Anywho, that was a tangent. Nothing really related on any of those spectrums. So you biked. Then you got your license.
Got my license and drove.
What was your first car?
Volkswagen Jetta. Black.
Dude, classic.
$900 cash.
Oh, yeah. Under the mattress.
And it stalled out. I bought it. My dad and I drove it to AutoZone in Ephrata, Advanced Auto in Ephrata, by Walbo there. Went in the parking lot, or parked in there, and it got like floor mats, steering wheel grip. Like I
spoiler. Hang yeah.
And then pulling. I'll never forget this. Pulling out of the parking lot, I floored it, and the thing went and just stalled out.
Was it manual?
No, it wasn't manual. It was automatic, but I floored it halfway into the lane, and it stalled out. Freaked me out. My dad's like, start it up. I'm like, I can't. So I think we put it in neutral and pushed it back into the parking lot. And then I don't forget what happened. I think we eventually started it up, and then it was fine. But to this day, I hate flooring it to pull out just because of that. Like, yeah. And that was the only time I remembered ever doing it. I floored it.
That was the only time you floored your car.
No, that was the only time that car did that to me.
I was going to say. I was like,
yeah, no. I've floored it since, but ever since then, I'm very leery about flooring.
Were you an aggressive driver? Did you speed a lot?
No, I tried not to.
Good for you, man. Better man than me. I loved speeding.
Now, if I had a fast car, it might have been a lot harder. Like,
dude.
A zippy car or a responsive, but my Jetta was not very responsive.
No, that doesn't matter. I had a Ford. So, my first car I bought was the Mazda. Then I wrapped that around a tree doing like 80. But then I had a Ford Focus. I love Ford Focuses. Great little cars. They're trash, but you can just abuse them, and they just keep taking it. Me and my buddy, like, he had Dawson, actually. He had a Alero. I think it's a Chevy Alero. Is that the...
Sounds right.
Anywho, the thing was a sack of junk, dude. It had, like, different colored doors and side panels and everything. They were not fast cars. But what we found out is if we raced in reverse, it was infinitely more terrifying. So we were on, I don't even know what road it is, right off Brubaker Valley at our one buddy's house. And we're like, okay, yeah, let's just back up onto the road and drag race in reverse. My Focus got up to 45 miles an hour in reverse, and it still had more to go. I was terrified because at 45, then your steering's in the back of the car if you're going to,
right.
And like any little tweak, the whole car was like, absolutely terrifying. But
what were the rules? Like, could you look back in the rear view?
You were just looking back and just gunning it.
Yeah.
And his topped out at like 35, so it was. I smoked him, but it was so.
And
scary.
The sound,
dude,
like the
it
rear
like it was about to blow up. If you take like an F-22 and then knock it up like 17 octaves, that was the sound of my Ford Focus.
Some Ford engineer right now is just like,
yeah. But anywho, I also took that car. This is a random story too. My brother and same farm actually, the same place we raced. I don't know why we did so much stupid stuff on that road. My brother and his one buddy had the one guy had a dirt bike and then my brother had a four-wheeler. And I didn't have anything, and I was bummed. They were ripping around in the field, so I was like, well, screw this. So I got in the Ford Focus and just started ripping through the fields. Doing like 65 through a field, just ripping the e-brake. And it just kept taking it. I love that car. It was so fun. Stick shift, blast of a car, but then I think I didn't total that one. That one I bought for like $2,200, and it had like 40,000. This was before COVID. And then over COVID, no, this would have been a little before COVID, I sold it, and the car market was crazy. I doubled my money on it. It was awesome, and
nice.
I drove it for like 2.5, 3 years.
Nice.
But I still wish I had that car back, but sad day.
Wow.
Anywho, that's a random tangent for another time.
No, that's fine.
What were we saying? Villain story.
Senior year,
yeah. Got working with Howler.
Yep.
$950, good pay, honestly. Still
competitive.
Hoping. Yeah, still hoping for the day I get $950. But so then when did you transfer straight from Howler onto your own business?
Yeah. So I was at Howler then for 5.5 years, and then got my journeyman's. And then within within 6 months, actually, probably, I got married. And then 1 year after I got married, pretty much to the day, 20 days short of my anniversary, went on my own.
Really?
Yep.
So where was the? So with Howler, you got your journeyman's. Did you have to do the night school?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I should back up. So the cool thing with Brownstown is they do the ABC program, Associated Builders and Contractors.
Oh, yeah.
So they do that. Your senior year in Brownstown is year one for ABC. So then after ABC, or after Brownstown, I went to Howler, and then they compensated me basically for my apprenticeship schooling at ABC. So
they paid for your schooling then?
Not up front. I paid up front. But as long as I got straight A's, and it was basically what they did was so 1 calendar year after your first year, like if you started the year 2, they compensated you for that first year. So that way, and then after I graduated my 4th year, they waited, I think it was 90 days or a year, and then they compensated me from that year as long as you had A's, straight A's. And the reason they did that was just to keep guys on, because guys would graduate and then leave to go somewhere else because they could say, I graduated ABC, and I'm going to another company and make more money. So then you had to wait, and it was like $700, I think, or something like that, which for a young guy that was a lot of money. Yeah, it's still a lot of money today. That's like 2 weeks, a month of groceries. Two weeks of groceries. So yeah, then graduated there, got my journeyman's, and then went on my own pretty much after that. And
so you just used and abused them, and then
I
love it. I love it. That is an origin story.
That's right. I forgot to mention. I wanted to do service. getting more into service plumbing, but they were like, no, new construction's busy. We want to keep you there. You're trained there, whatever. And a lot of the service guys were, 40, almost 40. I'd say early 40s, late 30s and up. So experienced plumbers, kind of maybe a little bit more easier on the body kind of work.
Oh, yeah.
So they didn't want a young 20-some-year-old doing it. But anyway, so I was like, well, I'd like to do that. And I'm talking to a bunch of other guys, and several other electricians, plumbers were like, oh, yeah, I thought of going on my own. But, now I have a house and family and kids. It's more risk. And back then, we had a car payment and we were renting. And I told my wife, I'm like, I think it's like now or never.
Yeah.
Like, if I do it now and fail, my wife worked full time. So it was like, why
What'd she do?
She worked at United Zion in the dietary.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she worked up to management. She would help with kitchen stuff, waitering, clean up, that kind of thing. But, yeah, she worked up to management. When she left to have Landon, our son, our firstborn, and they didn't want her to leave. They were offered her, like, I forget, $3-4 pay raise, a whole bunch of other stuff. And, yeah, she said, nope, I'm going to raise my son, help my husband with his business. So that's what she ended up doing, then leaving that. And that was year 3. I think it was year 3 or 4 of my business, something like that. So anyway, but yeah, so talking to other guys, other plumbers that wanted to possibly start their own, I was just like, well, it's now or never. In my opinion, it's now or never, the least amount of risk. That way, if it failed. And I tried to play it smart. We saved up, like 6 months of living expenses. And then I snowballed about a month's worth of side jobs and just said, hey, if you wait till April or May 1st, I'm going on my own. I can do. And so it's just been busy ever since. So
then how'd you get those side jobs? Like, were you scalping customers?
No.
Be honest.
It wasn't.
Oh, Haller's going to be pissed.
Well, there was several guys at Haller that didn't do side work. Like, they just hated it.
Yeah.
They hated the split of evenings and weekends. So they were like, hey, Woodcraft can do it. So I snowballed those, but then word of mouth got around, that friends and family and even customers that were like, to like I said, to guys at Haller or whatever. Yeah. My boss, I think, gave out my name to a couple people.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was
that's actually nice.
It was kind of nice. Some small stuff that like was almost too small for Haller.
They didn't want.
And my boss was cool with it, just as long as I wasn't competing with them with the bigger jobs and like they're losing to me, and I wasn't interested in the bigger jobs anyway. So anyway, and that's how it started. So I just snowballed a month's worth of work and just left, went on my own and started work, and it was busy.
So with that, so I had a moment, I don't know, maybe half a year. No, it would have been over a year ago, where the church I go to had a position for some sort of art director type deal, and I was seriously considering going to that job, and then things just worked itself out that it fell through, and then I just stayed at GH Mechanical. But even in transitioning to that job, the fear of missing out. Yeah. I don't know, maybe I struggle with crazy FOMO. I don't really know, to be honest. But I knew GH was in a spot where it's okay, they're going to do awesome things. But then also I was working in the field at that time, and I didn't love what I was doing. So it's I was in that rock and a hard place type deal. Yeah. And dude, that was one of the weirdest, I wouldn't say hardest, but just weird decisions of my life, even though I didn't even get the position.
Sure.
But what moving from security, and now I guess I kind of feel like I'm dealing with that a little bit now. So you have security, which is your 9 to 5, your steady paycheck every day, or every other week or every week, however your pay schedule is. But then you have the freedom of, it's way more responsibility, way more risk, but you have the freedom of kind of taking your business to a level of what you want to do a little bit more.
Right.
With that, what was your thought process? Did you have a lot of fear or anything surrounding that, where it's just oh, dang, and I feel even today, maybe it wasn't, I feel every time period is pretty much the exact same. It's never the right time to do something. Right. You just kind of got to do it. I know even with talking with people, it's oh, 2018, I should have bought a house. And it's like, yeah, but in 2018, you were grumpy because the housing market sucked too.
Right.
So, like,
Right.
it's always that. It's never that opportune time. But do you think, like, in today's world now, everything, like, yeah, inflation's crazy, whatever the media wants to tell you there. Like, do you think there's differences? Or do you think if you would go out on your own today, now, obviously, you today, but in your 20-year-old self.
Right.
Do you think there would be differences, or do you think it would pretty much be the same? You think it would be like has times really changed, or is it just kind of something you just got to do?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely something you got to do. If your heart is set on it and your mind is set on it, you will make it work. And for my wife and I, it was, well, what logically, how do we mitigate risk? How do we take a like you were saying, unsure event from our security to our unsure event or unsecurity and make it more secure, or make it pad any bumps in the road? And so that's where we felt 6 months of savings saved up. And we weren't going to wait 6 months, but like 3 months in, if it's like, hey, or 2 months in, things are not working out, the money, whatever, the profit isn't working or whatever, doesn't make sense, then we'll abandon ship. And I even thought too, like my boss said, if you're always welcome back, there'll always be work here. So I thought, even now that I quote unquote quit, I could come back as like a new position, part-time, 2 days a week, whatever, and make this side hustle work, or the side service plumbing work. But then also, I think a big thing for me was just, and for men and for husbands, it's the security and work. And so for me, I felt like snowballing that. Yeah, that's 1 month of service calls, or I'm sorry, of plumbing. And it wasn't like I had 4 or 5 jobs in a day. It was like, okay, I get one job this day, one job that day, and a month is, what is that? 25 working days, 22 working days, depending on, whatever.
Like that.
So plenty of working days. And I was getting 2 to 3, I'd say 2 to 3 side jobs, 1 to 2 side jobs a week. Like,
it's really going down.
Working, yeah.
5 to 6, I had maybe one job every other week.
So I wasn't worried about calls coming in after that month of side jobs. So, yeah, and that's just what happened. I ended up, having, and then, of course, you have the bathroom model, which is, okay, there's 2-3 days of work. So I can't do other service calls or emergencies or whatever. And then you have the emergencies that come in when you have a full. So it was just the balance of those two dichotomies. But, no, I believe if I would change anything today, obviously with children and everything, I might cushion that to like 2 months of side jobs if the customers can wait that long. It's just it, some can't, and that's, I would have to turn those away. But just padding that that workload farther out. And then obviously, I like to say you got to be a hero at home first to my wife or to your family.
God bless, baby.
So as long as your wife's on board, and my wife's very practical, very logical. Like, if I have an idea, I almost have to have 3 backup ideas, because she will grill me on, what if this happens? What if that happens? And now being married 12 years, I can kind of counter those with, well, I thought of that. Yeah. So this or this, but there's some that she throws me. I'm like, I did not think of that, babe. Like, okay, then I'm not sure what we would do. But with her being on board and making sense to her, that's what we ended up doing. So. And I had a van at that point, too. I don't know if I said that. We had a car payment for my wife's car, but I had a fully paid for Chevy Astro.
Oh, yeah, dude. The Astro. Dude, what happened to the Astro? For the longest time, that was like the Mennonite Brethren staple. You got 4 kids. You're piling them in the green Astro. Now I don't see any of them suckers on the road anymore.
Yeah, they're an antique.
They were great, though.
But they were workhorses, and they was just go and go and go and go and go.
Dude, and that's something now I'm getting off track a little bit here, but we'll circle back.
It's your podcast.
This is something that baffles me. We're going to go on a hardcore tangent because it's just going to lead into other things, but I want to dive here. With young people now, I don't feel like young people go through the awkward teenage middle school years. I went to the beach the other day. Not the other day. This was literally like last summer. And, like, when I was in middle school, I was fat. My hair was gross. My mom still bought my clothes, so they were from, like, Goodwill, so they looked like my grandfather just dressed me. And it just wasn't a good time. I didn't know how to style my hair. I didn't know anything. Now, dude, you go to the beach, and these kids are, like, dime pieces, which is weird to say because I'm 25, and it's illegal. But I'm not just saying. It's like they don't go through these awkward years anymore. Getting back into the cars are sweet. And it pisses me off because it's like, dude, you're never going to experience having that trash car. That was like the rite of passage to get into, like, I don't know. Like, you see these sweet Kias nowadays, and, like, it's like this 15-year. It's like, first off, you don't even have a license. I don't even know how you're driving that. Second off, get a garbage car. It's like, it's wild. I don't know if it's just like the influencer lifestyle has crept into, like, younger teens, but it's like, yeah, you go and these guys have, like, this fresh lined out cut, and it's like, what on? First off, where'd you get the money for that? I had 2 nickels, and literally I couldn't even spend those because I rubbed them together for heat. But it was like, now they're all decked out. It's like you got a gold chain on, you're dripped out in all this, like, designer, and it's like, this is insane. But then you go into the, like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's just that influencer lifestyle where it's now we have more accessibility to information. So it's like makeup tutorials and stuff like that. And, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. It's just like, dang, these kids are good looking and I was ugly. So maybe it's an insecurity. I don't really know. Anywho, that was a wild tangent. If you got anything to say on that.
No, I think, yeah, the influencer lifestyle or the influencers that some of these kids are watching is definitely, you know, life put together. It's the Instagram versus reality.
Oh,
you
yeah.
see those videos all the time, the Instagram versus reality. But I think, too, a lot of time, my generation, I felt like, and especially the area I grew up, like, we did hard. Like, for example, I did a newspaper route.
Oh, yeah?
I biked every single day. I think it was almost 3 miles round trip, starting with 40 newspapers in the back of my basket, my bike. And it wasn't like mom made me, dad made me, but it was like, hey, if you want to make money, there's newspaper route, there's working for a farmer, whatever. And mom didn't drive me. I never asked mom to drive me. She was willing to do it on the really rainy days, but I was like, no, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
Like I can do it. And so it's. I don't know if it's, you know, my dad was always a go-getter. Like, he'd bike. My dad would bike 12 miles to work one way.
Yeah, you told me that. That's insane.
Yeah, 24 miles round trip. He was a marathon runner. He qualified for Boston 2-3 years in a row when I was real young.
Did he run it?
Yeah, he ran the Boston Marathon with Oprah Winfrey.
No way.
And Oprah Winfrey, I think this was 93 or 94. Yeah, she had security guards run with her.
Did he beat her?
I think he did, yeah.
Attaboy.
I'm pretty sure.
Get wrecked, Oprah.
I forget. I forget what he placed, but yeah, he qualified. Anyway, so I say that to say that was my example growing up. Not only that, but like getting up early. Like my dad was up at like 3:30 in the morning, even though he didn't have to be in at work till 7. So,
good for him.
But he'd get up early, like he'd have devotions, his time with the Lord. I'd come down to him, you know, falling asleep on the couch. You know, hey, Dad. Oh, yeah, how's it
Time
going?
with the
You know,
Lord,
I'm having time with the Lord right now. I'm like, yeah, Dad, you've been sleeping probably for 2 hours. But, you know, that was my life growing up, and that was my example. And, you know, it's not like Dad said, you have to do this or, you know, you have to bike to your newspaper route. You have to get up early, spend time with the Lord. I just saw that. You know, they say more is caught than taught. And that's so true for me in growing up. Like, going back to what you were saying, I think a lot of it's the example that these kids have.
Yeah.
And I can think of several kids that's a generation or two younger than me that, you know, their example of fathers are not so good. So their mom's taking them to work or, you know, and I could think of many, many kids, you know, on top of my head that are like that. But, you know, I think also the father figure is so important in this upcoming generation and these kids. And when you have a strong father figure in your life, you know, and especially one that doesn't care about looks or you know, what you have, because my dad was never a big possessions guy, had to have the latest and greatest. You know, he has a flat bottom boat right now that has a hole in the back, and they call it the leaky boat. And my mom was like trying to have him get rid of it. And he's
yeah.
like, no, JB Weld will take care of that, honey. I need to get this. So he's determined to get this thing not to leak. And it looks like something out of some horror movie. But anyway, that's just my dad. Like he'll make it work. And so that's my example. I can definitely relate to you, the haircut, the bowl cut. You know, they put a bowl in your head and just get your hair out.
Get straight Amish up in this business.
But that was my example. So you know, and I think it boils down to, like I said, the father figure, but then also possessions is really taking over this next generation. And you see it in influencers, you see it in the kids' lives. It has to be the newest Jordans, like this whole shoe market and the whole dichotomy of shoes and buying shoes and Jordans and all this stuff. Like, I see so many videos online where it's like, oh yeah, I'm wearing $100,000 shoes. $100,000 shoes when I was a kid, there was no way any of my friends had $100,000, or we talk about $100,000 shoes. Like that's half a house.
Yeah, so, 4 families didn't even have $100,000 combined.
So I mean, I could go on and on, but yeah, I think that's ultimately what it boils down to. What's desirable in a kid's life, what they're, and you know, and back to even influence. If their parents are influencing them, these influence quote unquote are, and those influencers are pushing the haircuts, the clothes, they have to, because they're in front of the camera.
For sure.
But you know, and I've heard many stories of influencers being one personality on camera and completely different behind the camera. And
that's exactly what this is. We're just indoctrinating children. Dripped out in the most designer fashion, pretty much just trying to be PewDiePie.
My Sam's Club shorts.
Oh yeah, dude.
My Goodwill slides.
Hey, thrifting is trendy now, so you rock that Goodwill.
Yeah.
Velcro. Boy, that was a tangent. Where were we before? It's kind of hot in here. I want to see if I can turn this fan on without it messing with the mics too much.
So it doesn't get.
We'll be right back, folks. Oh, dang it. There we go.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, yeah, that feels great.
Yeah. I don't have AC in this room, and it's kind of frustrating. You know what? The studio hasn't been making as much money as it used to pull in, so we got to make sacrifices. But I don't think...
that you got to pay me, so...
Oh, dude. Freaking guest. Thinking they own the world. I'm an influencer, whatever. But, man, what were we saying? We were talking about jobs. We were talking about...
Security. You were saying about security in that position that came up at the church.
In that, the security versus, I guess, freedom. I guess maybe even I'm going through that a little bit. Like, me and George had a conversation the other day, just kind of about the podcast and everything. And the crazy thing is, I make not like an insane amount of money, but I make a good wage for my age, I believe. And he's like, so why are you getting into the podcast type deal? Like, where's this going? Like, are you like planning on leaving GH or whatever? We had a really good conversation about it. I was like, no, honestly, but like in today's world, and I think in today's world for the expectation that society puts on living, like, I just don't make enough money. And it's like, at some point, hopefully someone sponsors this and we make some money from it. Down the road. But I do think there is something to that where it's like the expectation of what you need to do in like a year is way higher. And I think that has to do kind of with the influencer lifestyle type deal. But it's like, oh, well, we need to go on 2 vacations a year to Barcelona and freaking Ireland. It's like, what? No. Dude. A vacation when I was growing up was we got a paper bag and we put it on each other's head. We pushed the sibling down the stairs and took it off. It's like, you're in France, you idiot. Like, we didn't go on vacations. Like, we hardly went out to eat. Like, we thought going out to eat was going to Burger King, which was insane. And now it's like, oh, you're going out to eat every weekend with friends. If you're getting drinks or whatever, you need to be decked out with the Nuna Duna Luna baby stroller. And you gotta and baby stuff is ridiculous.
Expensive.
It's stupid. Like, A, they're gonna outgrow it. B, they're gonna poop on it. C, they're gonna throw up on it. And D, they don't care. They're not. What baby's like? I don't have my Luna. Like, it's like no baby even knows And it's just like, I don't know. I think the expectation for the standard of living has just elevated. And with that expectation, and don't get me wrong, all those things are fun. I love doing those things. I do those things. And that's why I'm broke. So it's like, I get it. I'm not bashing on those people at all. But it's like, if you still want that lifestyle, you need to make extra streams of income. And then tying that back in with what we were saying, with getting your own business, yes, there is much more risk involved in that, but I would say there's much more reward to live the higher elevated, not really status, just life.
Yeah.
For sure.
I heard it put this way a couple months ago, I believe it was, on a reel or something that I saw. And let's go back 50 years ago. You didn't see very many high rollers, what I'll call high rollers.
Yeah.
You saw 50 years ago, even 100 years ago, you might see for us, the mansions in Lancaster or City. That would be probably it 100 years ago, 50 years ago. But now you have the internet, as 20, that's been around, 20 years, I guess now? You have the internet, you have these influencers. So you see across the world in Dubai, this guy driving a gold Ferrari or a gold Lamborghini that you would never see 50 years ago. So what they're doing is they take the standard, not standard of living, but the goal of wow, that's making it to a whole nother level versus 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it was it's I don't know, the owner of such and such business has that big mansion.
If you had 2 horses in your stall, you were loaded.
But it made it more tangible is not the word, achievable. Okay, that person, because you dealing with the demographic of where we live. You're dealing with the farmer lifestyle, just the area. It's not across the world where the guy struck oil. And because then his neighbor might be, he has 4 Ferraris. His neighbor has 2, and those are anyway. So the internet has taken what our concept is of making it and high roller or whatever the word is to a whole nother level. I'll tell you what, to put it in perspective, is going to a third world country.
Oh yeah.
I was in Haiti in 2020. And we live a high roller life compared to some of those folks.
Lighting,
fan. I'm serious. We didn't have fans down there. We didn't have we were sweating in a concrete building. But the kids don't know anything else. So I heard one story of a boy who was in the orphanage that I was helping out with takes the worst of the worst cases. They're only about 6 to 9 children. New Life Mission, it's called. It's a new mission. Young couple. The wife is from Ephrata, and then the husband is from Haiti. But they took a boy that was, I believe he was 3 or 4. His mom died. His dad died. His aunt passed. I think his grandma was taking care of him.
Dang.
But his grandma couldn't really keep track of him all the time because she had children she was taking care of. He was 3 or 4 on the dirt streets, on the dirt roads, and I believe he had worms as well, all kinds of crazy stuff. So they took him in and adopted him, or orphan adopted him, kind of a thing. But yeah, you listen to these stories and you hear these stories, and it just puts your life in a whole nother perspective to say, wow, I really am blessed to have what I have. And I heard several stories even this weekend of just children abused here in Lancaster City. The one boy is 7 years old now. He was kept as a child in a dog crate.
Oh, dang.
And he is permanently disformed because he was in there that long from whatever, I'm not sure how young, but he has a permanent hunch to himself now. His parents are both in prison. The custody went to the one grandparents. The grandparents actually busted the door down to rescue the kids.
Strong grandparents.
So yeah, they busted the door down and rescued the kids. The daughter was zip tied into a car seat.
Jeez,
and to this day, they find her with cords around her neck because that's comforting to her. Because she was zip tied into her into her car seat,
Dang.
soiled diaper, you name. So these kind of stories, I don't mean to take us to a dark place all of a sudden, but these kind of stories help put my life and my children's, me and like just being so thankful for my children, my wife being a good mother, but helps put my life into perspectives to say, wow, I am so blessed. You know, we're so blessed. And, you know, I was told this story at a pool party this weekend, and even just a little bit of time I had with this little girl kind of totally changed my concept of where she was from, and maybe even some of her attitude, because they said, you know, she's a typical 5-year-old, but there are times where she just gets really angry or steal stuff, and so instead of just lashing out at her, to understand, wow, she came from a hard place, a dark place, and we need to show her the love of Christ and be a light to her. So anyway, if you look hard enough, there are stories like that over, and help put your life and my life into perspective and be thankful for what we have. But I recommend a mission trip that if anyone has not gone on one, to go to a third world mission trip, or just even honestly like Lancaster City. Help out.
Some parts of Lancaster City are third world, dude.
Help out
at that job today, and hoo-wee.
Help out at the homeless shelter too.
Which that was crazy. So we just went down to a job in Lancaster today.
Yeah, George was telling me about it.
And it was a restaurant that kind of got shut down. They're revamping it now. But above the restaurant was 6 rooms, no kitchens. So it's just like rooms, small rooms, way smaller than this. Probably the guy there said the one was like an 8x8. And these 8 rooms or 6 rooms shared 2 bathrooms. Like, and they were each different tenants, but they literally only had 2 bathrooms. They didn't have a kitchen. And like the place was, third world-esque, dude. It was insane. And then you're like, okay, I have it pretty good. But even with the whole influencer thing, I feel like no one's going except for us. Like, we'll say we're broke, but like no one is posting the bad times. So you don't think they exist for those people.
Right.
You're like, oh my word, like these people are in $1 million house, driving a $100,000 car. And it's like, this is just what life is. Like, this is what it is. Yep. And it's like, no one's posting what they had to do to get there, or if they came by it honestly, or who they had to scratch and claw to get to that point.
Right.
So you don't think about it. You're just like, oh, this is life. So that's interesting. We talk about influencers a lot on this podcast.
They're influencing you.
I know, they are influencing me, and I'm influencing you. Man, I just can't wait to be the influencer life. Driving my Ford Focus around. Maybe I'll afford a wing for it, pimp that thing out.
I heard there's an accountant, and he said that he said he has more. No, let me back up. Accountant, he said he has a client that's worth $8 billion.
Dang.
But he said you'd never know it.
Yeah.
He didn't go into great detail, but it sounded like an older gentleman, maybe 50s, 60s, drives a Jeep Cherokee on the street. You couldn't pick him out as a billionaire, $8 billion. But he said he has 85 or 95% of his clients that are going through divorce have nothing but live lavishly but their lives are just absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And so his point was, don't judge a book by its cover just because an influencer is putting up these and we all know this, of course, from scripture and stuff, but just because they're putting up these videos or flaunting their wealth. You know, the Bible says, Jesus said about storing the foolish man who stored he built bigger barns to store more, and then the next day his life was asked of him or taken from him. Paraphrasing, of course, but that's the influencer life in a nutshell.
Heck yeah.
If and there are some good ones out there, far and few between, but there are some. But just storing up for in life here with maternity gains, not maternity.
Maternity. Yeah, we just got a bunch of pregnant women standing around here. What on earth?
Monetary gains or things of this world that, hey, you could be in a car accident tomorrow and your life be, taken from you. Life is gone. Vapor.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I don't know. That's something too, which if you talk to really rich people, like I'm talking like screw you money. And I've talked to, I don't have obviously access to a lot of these people, but those are the people where it's like, they don't need to prove themselves to you.
Right.
They don't need that $1 million car or the $100,000 Rolex. Because it's like, no, I have like what me proving myself to someone that makes 50 grand a year, like that's insane to them, which it is. It's like, yeah, why would they need to show anyone? So I think they're much more secure. But then when you get to the like semi-rich people, it's like they're the ones dripped out and everything. And it's like everything's on payments. And you would think they would be at this super elevated status when in reality, not usually the case.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to go for. Just absolutely dripped out. Just my whole life's on payments. No, I'm kidding. I don't have any payments at this point in my life.
That's great.
But I might. Payments, influencer lifestyle, business. Is there anything within business? So like starting your business, now growing it to what it was 10 years. Maybe a lesson I don't know if it's a lesson. Like, obviously, okay, prime example. When you take something, even my position at work, because pretty much the only thing I can do is go from my own experiences and then gauge the world through that. But, like, for me, until I was placed in a situation of not necessarily a do or die, but, like, more responsibility is put on me, I didn't really care. Did you find within business, it was all of a sudden like, no, I don't have this security, and then you cared infinitely more, and that's kind of what developed your business? Do you operate like that? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I would say, yeah, I think I get what you're trying to get at. Yeah, for me, I'll put it this way, when I went on my own and it was me, myself, and I doing the work, yeah, I would say I started really crossing the T's, dotting the I's, because the person that's going to get called back to fix whatever it is me. I'm not going to make any money doing that if it's a mistake. And so I really started caring more, taking my time a little bit more. Even if I lost money, quote unquote, or if I had to ask for more money, I'd rather the job be done right and be the reputation of that than, oh yeah, he's a great price, but he does crappy work, or he doesn't finish his jobs or whatever. And even the Bible says that not master craftsmen, but craftsmen that are good at their work will do work before kings, I believe is kind of how I'm paraphrasing that, but that's kind of and that's in Proverbs.
That's the message. Yeah, that's the message version, people. not the KJV right there. Holy, we didn't have a single thou or thou not.
That was the Matthew King James. No, but that was kind of my what I wanted to stand behind was do good work, and create a good craft or be a good craftsman, because that's what's the reputation that's going to precede me, not Joe Schmo does an okay job, and you'll get a leak or two, but at least it's done and done cheaply. So as I progressed and continued my business, I really started caring more, paying attention to the details and learning a lot. I learned so much because I made those mistakes, and it was like, oh, okay, I can't run this pump without a vent. Like it has to have a vent, and I never really did that before. I remember the first time I pulled a well pump, I YouTubed it the morning of or the night before. I'm like, I pulled a well pump once. I don't really remember. This was like several years ago before when I actually did it, and I'm like, I don't remember. I YouTubed it, and I'm like, I got this. Yep. So thankfully, I think that pump's still working today. But yeah, that's just how I did it, and learned on the job, asked questions, called people that maybe knew better than me, or had them come help me on a job and paid them for it. And even if they made more money than I did, but hey, next time I know what I'm doing. So yeah, you and. When the buck stops with you and everything is on your shoulders for a business to make it or not, you really, not that you do drastic things, but you might do things a little bit more out of your comfort zone. For sure. Like I say, making that phone call and say, hey, Frank, I don't know what I've done this. I've only done this once before, but like, can you help me through this, or can you come out to the job, or can you, when I'm done with it, come look over everything? Yeah, so you kind of put you out of your comfort zone a little bit. You might do things you don't normally do, but that's all part of growing. And
I think that's like, even so, transitioning from me in the field to me to the office now, kind of developing a position on my own, realizing how I'm wired is I almost need to do like a famine type situation for me to do a good job. Like, hey, this is a do or die. Like if it's, because when I was in the field, Christian was always my superior.
Yeah.
And he had obviously a way more experienced plumber than me. But when I am around people that have more experience, I can very much plead ignorance, so they just do it. Because it's like, this probably won't be up to your standard. I'm not even going to try. But then literally I'll come home and I'll do a full bathroom remodel by myself, where on the job I wouldn't even set like shower. It's like, I know how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like, for me personally, I just needed like, it would have been better for me to just be like thrown to the job and be like, hey, figure this out. And I could have done it 100%. But since I always had that buck to pass type deal, I don't know why. Probably because I watched too much movies and played too many video games, that there's something loose upstairs that I'm like that. But then transitioning to the office, it's like, dude, you can't pass the buck to anyone.
Yeah.
Like, if this doesn't go through, you're to blame.
Right.
Then it's like, oh, yeah, shoot. And you do an infinitely better job, at least for my personality, and you care way more. Like, in the field, it's like, if I know they'll pick it up, I don't really need to do it. They're better than I would always use, like, oh, they're better. So, like, they can do it.
Right.
But then when it's like, hey, it's my own position, and then you have the freedom to develop it to what you want it to be. You're like, oh, like, because then you do care. It's like, hey, I can develop this. And then if I do, then it can benefit da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So then you care even more, which is weird, because it's like you do have more responsibility, but in turn that breeds like more freedom. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. It's even like, I don't know if this super relates. I don't know why my brain just went here. But even like with Christianity. So it's like you're a slave to Christ, which inherently means like you are bound. But in that, the freedom... It seems counterintuitive, because you're like, well, how can you be slaved and then be the most free you've ever been in your life? And I don't really think you understand those type of things. Like, so many people told me that. Like, things along those lines. And I think for certain people, maybe they can just pick it up. And God bless those people, because they will go through way less hardship. But I think for some people, you just need to go through it yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, until you do, it clicks. Like, it's like, oh. Like, some people, it's like, you just need to make those mistakes to actually figure out this makes sense. Like, this is a legitimate thing. So that was kind of interesting for me. I don't know how I got there.
And you're a people person. So, like, when you would go out and do estimates, like, I know George has told me this, like, it was so natural for you to be, like, talking to people. You grasp the enough of plumbing and to know, like, okay, this is the info we need, measurements we need, whatever pictures we need, that kind of thing. So, you know, you took your experience from the field and then your people skills and combined them to the position you have now. And I know George has said that, you know, you've blossomed really, really well.
Just like a cherry tree.
It's
just beautiful.
Like a dandelion.
Whoa, dude, that's whatever. Screw you, dude. This new boss business sucks.
You took it this position, made it your own, and no one told you how to do it, exactly how to do it. You know, maybe George gave some insights and some
for
guidelines.
sure. Yeah, you still need guidance.
But yeah, and it's something that you enjoy, and I feel like as men and as husbands, like when our feet are put to the fire, like it's either do or die. You go figure it out, or it's gonna crumble and fall. Like when men are put in that position, you know, I think of like the Battle of the Bulge, or taking D-Day, like taking the beach. Like these young men, 19, 18, whatever, when they were told, like, yeah, we got to take this beach. They weren't told. I've heard stories of, like, they didn't know how bad it was going to be. Yeah. They thought when those gates fell on those aquatic vehicles that, like, they were going to face the enemy. But then when there was no enemy, they were like, okay, well, I guess we're just running and seeing all the people. But it was their feet were put to the fire, and it was take this beach or die or die trying. And I kind of, not that you know, every guy goes through that, or every man goes through that, but when you are, that weight is put on your shoulders of, and then this back to me with my business, like, yeah, like if this business doesn't thrive or grow or develop, I'm back to where I was. You know, I don't want to be called a failure, but I would feel like a failure. Yeah, my boss said that position was available to me, but no man wants to start out in something, try to do something, and then not work and have to take 4 steps back and eat the humble pie or whatever. So for me, it was a do or die. It was try to make this work, do everything, prep preparation as possible, as much preparation as possible, but then try. So I feel like, or it seems like with what you're telling me, that was just something that you had to develop. No one above you to tell you how to do it, and it was kind of a feet to the fire and make it work kind of a thing.
And I think even something along those lines, I was talking to a gentleman the other day where we would have grew up like same theological beliefs, but we disagree on a good amount of stuff. And I would have never thought I would have heard this from him, but he came from a broken home, and he was telling me a story about his dad, and divorced his wife and everything, and he said, he's like, my dad just stopped fighting. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but that just stuck with me. And I feel like in life, especially for me, and I don't know about for young kids, I should do like psychology class or class on the brain with what media and technology does to it. Because I feel like I suffer from that, dude. But like, he stopped fighting. And I just look at every aspect in my life. It's like, oh, dude, I can so easily just stop fighting.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, I'm going to watch TV today. Like, I'm just going to do whatever. And I think something that is maybe becoming more of a thing, like they make the shorts and the memes about it. It's like my dad when he was 18, like storming the beaches, me when I'm at 32 playing video games.
Right.
There is a bit of truth to that, though. And it's like, we're just not fighting. Like, and I don't mean like, like barbaric men, like tramping through the woods. It's like, no, like in basic things. Like, you need to fight within, at least for my own experience. Like, I need to fight to get up in the morning. Like, I need to fight to, get out estimates. Like, everything is just like, and I think so many times we can just like clock out and be in that comfort zone. And that's where that security comes back in. Like, oh, like I really, like there's so many times I've like really wanted to do legitimate things in life. And then I'm like, I'll scroll on my phone. Where it's like I'm replacing what I legitimately want to do with something more basic just because it's easier and more numbing. So even like with, even with the podcast, I struggle with this, like hardcore. Like, it's like, I really want to do this. I want to have people on. And then editing comes around and I'm like, dude, what am I? Let's go play Xbox. Like, editing sucks. Whoever's like good at editing, God bless you, dude, because it's so like, and it's just like in every little thing, like you just need to keep fighting. And I think for guys, I can't speak for women on this, but like you kind of need to put your back to the wall. So it's like, okay, like I need to fight. Or like we said, like I will die or whatever is the worst thing that'll happen. Like that will happen. Like you almost need that to just propel yourself forward. And then eventually it gets easier. I feel like I'm just in the point of life where it's just like, you're just fighting. If you're not fighting, then you're just sitting on the bench. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, well, I'm a piece of garbage. Why didn't I actually do what I wanted to do? Like I just watched 4 hours of cats like smittening something, and it's just like, what am I doing? But that, I don't know. And that's like, I don't really think there's pros and cons, but I think they're just consequences. Like, it's like in everything you do, there's a consequence. Like if you go on your phone for 4 hours, you have the good consequence of, hey, you feel good in that time. And then the bad consequence comes where it's like, you probably feel like crap later. You didn't do what you wanted to do, and then you deal with that. And it's like in every choice in life, it's just like, okay, like everything has that consequence. Like no matter what it is, good or bad, there's always a consequence to what you're deciding. So
something that'll take that to a whole nother level once you get there is children.
Oh yeah,
children
dude,
come along.
Terrified.
As I have a son and a daughter, 7 and 3, and leave. Even just being disciplined, getting home from work, eating supper. Okay, now it's time for baths and showers, whatever. Putting dishes away after supper, like all of that is just routine and going through this daily routine and all that's needed. But even getting up in the morning as a father and as a provider, that's a God-given or God-instilled instinct, I believe, in all men. And so for me, I mean, the influential life or staying in bed all day, that might appeal to some guys and some people for a short period of time and a certain period of time. I know a somewhat influential guy, and he said he actually
Dude, you don't
did
gotta
that.
Tell, 'cause I'm right here.
He made it, quote unquote, as an influencer. He was bringing over $700K a year.
Dang.
And doing, he did Instagram videos, Facebook videos, And then for a month and a half, he lived in Florida. He bought almost $1 million house with him and two other guys, and he rode jet ski for every day for a month and a half. And then he said he hit a brick wall. It was like, this is boring. I'm tired. He was tired of the quote unquote influencer life because he had a tree business after that or before that. And so anyway, he does more in his life now and is more involved in more entrepreneurial stuff and business stuff, not tree work, but other stuff. But my point is the children bring a whole nother dynamic to that. And the fact of providing for them and being there for them, and again that feet to the fire kind of a thing. It just puts, and then also raising them in this economy, not economy, yes, but this woke world and woke mindset, and just how oppressive it is. I mean, my wife and I have found, even in quote unquote conservative circles, we've had some situations come up and things happen, and it's just
some libbies,
any area that the devil can get in and influence your children or take away the innocence of them, he will. And my wife and I have found that more and more, no matter how hard we try. And ultimately, we can't protect them from everything in the world or everything that comes their way, but try to prepare them for it. But as far as getting up and doing sometimes the hard things or putting your feet to the fire, children will do that more than anything else. And that's kind of my heart right now. Like, my biggest desire in life right now is just raising my children in the fear and knowledge of the Lord and staying true to that path and not wavering, when they're teenagers and that kind of thing. But, it's so important. The Bible says to train a child in the way he should go, and he shall not depart from it. And if you get into the Jewish traditions, they have what's called a bar mitzvah. That's at 13. And 13, they're considered a man. So if you're raising a child from 0 to 13, seems like a lot, 13 years along, but my son's over halfway there already at 7. And they say some of the best and most influential years of character development is between 3 and 9, I believe it is. 3 and 9 or 3 and 7. So if he's going to 9, I got 2 years left to build that character in him and that
get it in there, dude.
And and it's so true, because even like I can think of situations and people in my life at that age from like 3 to 5. Like, I can remember some life altering or really memorable moments even at that age that I might have anything quite as memorable as later on in life. And had some drastic things happen when I was young, and I still remember to this day. And to me, it seems like just like a movie, like it just can play over and over again. But yeah, it's just a very impressionable year. And anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but
I shot some birds with a BB gun when I was probably 7, and that still messes me up, I think. Little babies in a nest. Ooh. Dude. Horrible time.
Yeah.
Bad decisions. The devil got a foothold on my life on that one. Kill. I don't know. No, I'm just messing. What were we saying before we got on that tangent? What were we talking about? I feel like I had something else to say. Money, influencer, work.
Moving to the office, kind of put your feet to the fire.
Oh, yeah.
Watch reels for 4 hours. Or
yeah, man, I love reels. And the other thing is, they're so darn good.
And they're addictive.
People are so clever. This is tangent. I'm gonna go there though. This is a triple tangent, but we'll get back to it. You talked about your dad running a marathon. Moving into that, I think I am like, if I'm not doing something extreme, I'm being lethargic. So a lot of things in my life, it's just like, you know what? No, like, I'm just going to do this one day. No thought, no preparation, no nothing. Like, the one day, got the thought in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go down to Philly and I'm going to be homeless for a week.
How old were you in that?
18. So went down, did it. Not everyone. Mom was losing her mind. But I had to call her every night. It was good. And I still think I carry...
Just by yourself, with anyone?
Yeah. But I think I carry that throughout my life, where it's like, okay, I'll just get to a certain point and it's like, okay, that's enough. We just need to do it. My newest thing which I don't know where I got this stick up my butt at, but it's like, okay, like I'm just going to run a marathon. Like not a legitimate marathon. Like I'm going to go on the rail trail. It's 14 miles. I'll run it twice at night with no training. And I don't know why, but it's just like I have to do this. And I have to do this within the next 2 weeks. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I feel like there are certain things where it's just like you kind of need to, put that. Because if I'm not doing stuff like that, and that's just me personally, I'm not saying everyone else is like that, but just for me personally, like doing extreme stuff like that, like everyone's like, that's retarded. Like, why are you doing it? Yes, it is. To a normal person, it's insane. But if I don't do this, I'm just going to stay in this rut of like whateverness, just kind of lethargicness. Oh, then my other one was I want to do a 12-day fast. Not for spiritual reasons, just because it's like I don't know. I feel like I just need to prove stuff to myself. Sure, I don't know. Sure. It's weird.
I think for men too, we have those victories or those standards we set, and we get those small victories. So, whether it's waking up in the morning and I don't want to hit the snooze button this morning. Okay, that's a victory. And sometimes we overlook those little victories. I lose
that battlefield every morning.
But for the times where we set that goal and that standard, let's say, of I'm going to run a marathon or I'm going to do a fast. Like sometimes us as men have to do those hard things to prove, if nothing else, to ourselves that we can do it and we can push ourselves to do it. And for me, like one small victory that I have almost every day is an 18-hour fast. So like whenever my last meal or whatever, I count 18 hours. Yep. So if I can hold myself from eating, that's a victory for me to that certain point. And yeah, it feels like my body's eating itself, which it essentially is. But that might be one victory for me. For some guys, it might be not hitting the snooze button. Yep. It might be not cursing someone out on the highway or something like that. But for us as men, I feel like we have to when we set those goals and we meet those goals, those are victories that we shouldn't overlook, because that's us accomplishing stuff in our day. And yes, those all are petty and whatever.
For sure.
Those the Bible also says that a man without vision I can't remember the rest of it, but basically, a man without vision is nothing.
Preach,
and I
brother.
That's so true. Like I say this to young men that are dating or engaged, that if you don't have a vision as a young guy and tell your spouse or your future spouse where you're going, how are they supposed to be able to join you? If it's just willy-nilly doing whatever, women love security, that they love, running to a shelter or whatever. And you as a guy, if you don't have that established, some women might find it attractive, but most will not. Most need a man with vision to know which way they're running. I like to say, like, if you're running a marathon or you're running a race, you want to be able to look beside you for a spouse and see someone running the same direction, the same pace, or whatever the case may be. That's so important for us guys to have vision and also to accomplish those goals, do hard things, and to each man it's different, and each guy it's a little bit
I can
unique.
talk to not having a vision. I'm one where I don't have a vision for anything. Like I'm
you do.
I'm
you
getting
have
better
a vision.
at it. I'm getting better at it, for sure.
This is a legit hard touchable, tangible vision that you've set, and it's you accomplished
for
it.
Sure. But like I like, even with dating, okay, so I was an awesome pre-dater. Let's say that. Awesome. Man, I was fun, I was flirtatious, I was freaking everything. Bad boy smooth. I didn't plan out anything, so it was just like, yo, let's like go do whatever, and it's like, oh my word, it's so cool. And then you get married, and that crap gets old to them quick, because it's like, dude, what are you doing? So like literally for the first year of our marriage, like it was generally people are like, oh, the first year is super hard. For us, it was a breeze because I didn't cast any vision. Like we didn't go anywhere. We literally were just in the mud, and then it was fine until year 2 and 3 rolled around, and then we reaped the consequence of me not casting a vision as a leader. And it's like, oh, I realized, hey, I don't know how to lead her because I don't know how to freaking lead myself. So you got to learn how to lead yourself first before you can lead someone else.
Right.
But yeah, no. And then obviously getting better at it, getting more mature, even within, more mature as a husband, more mature as a person, more mature as a man, more mature as a spiritual leader. Then you get vision, and then it's a growing thing. And even with this, it's like, yeah, I didn't really have a vision once I started, but then it's like, oh, now like let's shape and shift and tweak and everything within that realm. So, yeah, another tangent, but a good one.
And that's how it was with Life Flow. When I started Life Flow Plumbing, I wanted to do all things plumbing. And then within the first 3, 4 years, 5 years, I'm like, no, I really enjoy service. Yeah. So I started.
So you tweak it.
Yeah, tweaking it, whittling it down, not doing as many new construction jobs and more service. And yeah, that's part of life. You go through and you tweak things and you shape it to your vision. You know, God made us all unique in our own not simple ways, but our own unique ways. And if we were all the same, it'd be like robots. It'd be like boring. Will Smith iRobot. Like we'd all be standing there.
Well, maybe not boring. That was a great movie. Just saying.
Good movie. But yeah, it would be boring. Life would be totally boring. So, you know, it has to be different. It has to be unique. God created us all in our own special way. And yeah, if it was anything else, it'd be boring.
Now getting back to, I guess, your journey through the plumbing industry, in that, were there any times where it's like, dude, I'm hanging it up, like I'm done, or like any big financial setbacks where it's like, dude, I don't know how we can, or maybe you were just the Instagram influencer lifestyle where you're like, dude, this business is sailing.
Nope. No, there were definitely times. I can remember. I might have been year 8, 6, 7, 8, something like that. I was the only one in the office. Early mornings, 4:30 a.m. mornings. I can remember one time there was a span there for like a month or two. It was every single morning, weekends, like Monday through Friday, early mornings, getting the guys going. We would shop at 6 or 6:30. Getting the guys going, and then it was in the office Saturday, most all day Saturday, good chunk of Saturday, some Sunday, and I mean getting up early before church, doing office work, getting back from church, having some family time, whatever, in the afternoon after dinner, getting back in the office, and there was about a month and a half there that I was just like, I'm ready to hang it up. Like this is. I enjoy plumbing, but when you're doing it every waking hour, it felt like it got old, and I was ready to hang it up there pretty quickly, or if it continued that way. And I don't remember what kind of got out. I think I just put my nose to the grind and got some estimates done or whatever. But it was literally a month and a half of that, and yeah, it was just pushing through, getting it done, and making it happen. But yeah, there was definitely some time. Not really too many financial like crazy. There was a couple times where like we weren't going to meet payroll, and we obviously had to dip into our savings account. But that was only really 1 or 2 times I can remember, and it was literally we were owed tens of thousands of dollars, and people just didn't pay up, and they both didn't meet at the same time. So yeah, and once we got through those couple of times, people paid, and we were good. But yeah, but backtracking to that really tough time, like there was a couple years where it was really dark for me, and I struggled with honestly, like pornography was a big thing, and it was like my release or my go-to, because it was just something that I felt like I had no other outlet. Like it was just something I fell into probably before we were married, and I didn't really know much about it before marriage, and then curiosity. I always like to say curiosity killed the cat.
Killed the darn
I
cat.
started on it, and it just snowballed, and then it peaked probably 5 years into business, and I mean it was to the point where like I was talking with girls online and stuff. Like it was bad, and God and Jesus saved me from that. Brought me out of that, opened up to my wife. She found some stuff on my phone, 5-6 years into it. And I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm struggling with it, but I kind of like brushed it off at that, But it just really got to a point where, and I know guys like they put filters on or they get rid of their devices and stuff, but my heart was, no, I want this to be taken out of my heart, out of my life. I don't want to have a device and be tempted.
Yep.
So, I like to share that, even as a Christian, good old Lancaster County Christian boy, I struggled with that, and it was a deep, dark sin, demonic for sure, and Jesus saved me out of it, and I'm so thankful he did, because it's just a snare that they can get trapped in, and I think more men struggle with it than the church realizes.
Oh, dude, 98% of men struggle with pornography, and the other 2% are freaking lying to you. 100%.
But I'm here to tell you that you can be in the absolute depths of it, and God can still save you out of it. And I didn't really open up to like many guys about it, and like, man, I'm struggling with this, help me with it. I wish I would have kind of at the peak more than I did. But now that I'm kind of out of it, and God's brought me out of it, and I say I'm free of it, but I'm not completely free of lust or temptation too, because that's being a guy, and I always got to keep myself in check, and I'm very, very open with my wife. But once I got past that and opened up to my wife about it, our relationship got that much tighter. And I know this is probably cliche for a lot of guys, but I can tell you firsthand, it just got so much more intimate, so much more open. She could tell, like, hey, are you okay today? Like, things seem, and I'll just be honest, like, no, babe, like, I've been tempted multiple times, or I've fallen today, like, help me, or whatever. Like, and I'll text her, like, back when I was coming out of it and still, like, kind of struggling, I would text her and be like, hey, I'm getting tempted today, just let you know, whatever. But it was a struggle. That was, I mean, once I shared with her, it probably was almost a year, I would say, till I was completely not completely temptation free, but the desire wasn't there. I was, wasn't there anymore. To the point where, I mean, on the regular, it was a nightly thing, or at least a weekend thing. But then when I came out of it, it was, maybe once in 2 or 3 month thing. And then, now it's even less than that. It's very, very rare. But, it was something that God had to work through me, in my heart and out of my heart, to really open up to my wife and have that flow of communication. And but I share all that to say that was probably the darkest place of my personal life and where I was with my business, because like I said, I didn't really felt like I had another outlet. I would be so frustrated with the day and with myself, and it was just one failure after another with work. And it's like, well, I failed on all that. Why not just look at this or do this or fail at this? And, and I, in my back of my mind, I'd be like, well, God will forgive me. I'm going to repent after it. But, obviously that's not right or not good. But, I'm sure a lot of men have that similar mindset, even though it's not biblical. But, I'm just so thankful that I was brought out of that and saved from that, and don't struggle with that anymore.
And that's something, not that I wasn't expecting the episode to go here, but why not? We're freaking there, so why not go there?
You can edit it out.
No one, and this is, I guess, what kind of frustrates me. Obviously, 99% of men struggle with pornography. The other 1% is lying to you. So in saying that, same boat as you type deal. But just thinking over, like, I think I'm one where I seem very goofy and everything on the outside and all that, but I internalize a lot of stuff and just process. Yeah. And one thing that I guess not bothers me, but like, okay, 99% of us struggle with it. Why the frick don't we talk about it? Yeah. And I think not normalizing the conversation of like making it a joke. Right. But making the topic a little bit more approachable. Yeah. Because what pissed me off, quite frankly, growing up was like all these guys where they were just super unrelatable. Like, oh, this was a terrible thing, terrible. It was horrible. It ruined, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, in my current state where I was when they were giving those, I was like, I love this. Like, and obviously that sounds horrible being a Christian, but like just being honest, like, no, this is freaking awesome. Right. And then like people were like, oh, well, like it'll ruin your marriage type deal. Like, and I was just like, I don't understand how, when you have the real thing, how you could go to pornography. Yeah. Like if you're in a marriage relationship, you can have all the sex you want. Like, let's go. That's a horny 18-year-old's dream. And it's just like, oh, so how would you even think about that? And no one explains it to you. Yeah. And it's like, they're just like, well, it's bad, and which it totally is. But like, as an 18-year-old kid that's revved up on testosterone, like, break it down for me, because to me, I can't comprehend that. So it's like, okay, so why would you crave pornography over your wife? And it's like, well, it's way easier.
Right.
Way easier.
Yeah.
The internet will never say no to you. It can give you the most disgusting parts of your mind that you're afraid to talk to everyone about, and you can do it like that, and it's so easy.
Yep.
And it's like, also too, sex is work. Like, there's a communication, there's figuring it out, and it's just like, you don't need to do any of that. All it is instant pleasure, and it's to whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, and the chemical release is the same. The hormone in your brain or the chemical release in your brain for us men. That's, I mean, we're stimulated by sight. Most men are anyway. There's probably the 2% that aren't. Is the ones that
darn freaking liars.
So for us, it's the sight. So that's all we need for that chemical release to happen. And for women, it's normally touch and words of affirmation or words of endearment or whatever. But, you know, for us guys, and that's where I think a lot of women, and my wife included, just didn't understand. And now I think she does. But in the beginning, when I was like, trying to explain it to her, and I mean, you know, imagine like the deepest, darkest pit, and then trying to tell your wife, like, by the way, I'm down here, and this is what's going on. And her just like, what? Like, I didn't know it was this bad or whatever. But, and the Casting Crowns has a song called Slow Fade, and it's so true. Like, it can be a picture here, a video there, or you know, the society we're in, you know, girls in bikinis. Like, it just at the start of a thought, and then it just leads down
to another.
Yep, down this road. And for us guys, it's that chemical release is a video or picture or whatever. And you know, for some guys, maybe a little bit's it and it's done. But for others, that like, hey, part of it for me was my wife worked every other weekend. So I had the whole weekend, and this was right when I was starting my business. It's kind of how it all started. I was starting my business. I didn't really work Saturdays, definitely not Sundays. But so I'd have that. I'd be at home alone and like, you know, honestly just curious, and just that's how it all started. And for me, like I said, it's just that the sight and the sounds and the video, and then you just start on that trail. And it's such a, like you said, it's such a behind the scenes quick thing. You could look on your phone, and they literally make phones with fake screens on them that you can flip right to left, so you can be literally watching it, and then you flip the screen and it looks like Facebook or whatever. And then I've heard all kinds of stories, but it can be such a slippery slope, and you know, and the devil knows our weaknesses. They say AI will plug in things and send you things, like if you stop and look at a video for 10 seconds, it knows that, so it sends. So that with AI and the devil, I mean, they're probably two in one. But
AI is the Antichrist.
It's so easy for us guys to go down that road, and for it to be quiet. For us to be quiet about it, because there's the easy access, number one, the shame, number two. One, we don't even want to tell our wives about it, or mom or dad, or wherever stage of life we're in. We don't want to tell other guys about it because of the stigma behind it. But not knowing, like you said, 98% of them are probably struggling with the same thing. If we would all just be open and honest about it. And you know, there's apps, Coveted Eyes, and different things, and that's all great. But I think just a man to man, or guys we interact with on the regular, just saying, hey, you know, whatever, I was struggling last night, or I fell last night, please pray for me, or whatever. If you're in the middle of it and you got to make a phone call, or a text, I know there's an app that if you search certain sites, it'll send a text to a buddy that you, and so
I forget what program that is. But
it's out there. So
me and my buddy had that for a while.
You can call the buddy and say, hey, I know you're looking at this or about to, like, don't do it, whatever. So, but I think, like you say, that opening the conversation and having the conversation is much more important, and to release the stigma and get away from it. And obviously fight that battle, because, you know, we all have battles we fight in our minds.
For sure.
Men, women, it doesn't matter. But part of it's just being open and honest about it, and talking about it.
And that's something too, like, just realizing, like, for the younger kid, like, that couldn't fathom how a married man would stoop to that. But it's like, porn never argues with you.
Yeah.
You never disagree with it. Like it's everything so skewed, but that you want.
Right.
Like it's so twisted and deprived, but it's like you twist it in your mind like, oh, well, this is exciting, this is fun, like this is everything. My wife, she's just on my case or whatever. Like we all can get there.
Right.
We all can do those things where it's just like it becomes this. It literally becomes this god. Nothing else can come to this realm of like, it's my sanctuary. It's like where I go to just relax. Like if I have a crap day, like I'm not going to my wife because like this person online can like, they do whatever I want or whatever. And it's just like, just telling kids, I feel like that aspect of it, it's like just educates them a little bit more because for me personally, I can't speak for anyone else's experience. It was just like other men that have already went through it and on the other side, it was all the negatives. They were just like, this is bad, bad, bad. And they wouldn't ever they were never, I don't know, maybe they were still struggling with it. I have no idea, but they were never honest and like, no, like I loved it. Like, because there it was like, oh, well, like they're better than me. Like they think it's this horrible thing. I'm right in the middle of it. And I'm like, I love this. It isn't affecting anyone else. Like I got it under control.
Yeah.
And like it's good. And then once you get to that other side, you start realizing where those men were coming from. But it's like, I think we can word it a little bit better and educate a little bit better. And I think it's a very, if you're not talking to an honest crowd, it's a very uncomfortable thing to talk about.
Yeah.
If you're not talking to an honest crowd. But if you're just talking honestly and like, hey, this is where I'm at, like probably every other man in that room is right there with you. So it's not actually that big of a deal.
Yeah.
In the fact of shamefulness, obviously it's a sin and we can go into that plethora of things later. But like just being that open, honest and like, hey, like this is where it is. I get how you can in your immaturity view this as an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Like, because for me, it was just like, oh, it's horrible. And I was just like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. This is wild. Like, and just like, yeah, that, and it sounds, and I think the thing that I think why men don't talk like that, and this is obviously just my speculation, because it makes you sound like a terrible Christian.
Yeah.
Which it 100% does, but it's like you're looking at the garbage. So quite frankly, you are a terrible Christian because we're all terrible Christians. We all sin every single day. That's what makes us horrible. Not that you're looking at this one thing, but it's like you gossiped over here. You told a lie over here. In God's eyes, that's all trash. Yeah. Like, obviously, we're redeemed and all that, and like that has to be a part of it. But it's like, no, like we are. Like, this is a horrible thing, but and obviously there is shame that goes along with it for sure. But the devil twists that, and he uses it to keep you in it. And it's just like, like, hey, just be honest. And don't glorify it.
Right.
Don't be like, oh, you should do that. Just be honest with the kids. And, like, if you are a little bit more, and, like, obviously with me, I'm a more animated person. If I come off super stern, then the kid, like, whoever I'm talking to would be like, well, that's not me. Like, hey, I'm going to be myself because that's me. Like I am this. I'm not proud of this, but honestly, just giving it to you straight and like not sugarcoating it. And I think something too where I could even talking about my testimony in the past, I did use porn as almost an elevated status, like of being the guy that like opened up about it.
Yeah,
obviously a horrible mindset and super wrong, but like then you would almost get the like, oh wow, like you're willing to talk about it. And obviously that's immaturity, and we could go all in that. And the things you learn as you grow up. But
yeah.
Wild tangent, but
I heard,
glad we went there.
I heard a pastor say, he asked a gentleman, I believe the situation was, it was a marriage counseling setup, and he had seen many porn addicts come, just the symptoms of the wife acting like, I think he's doing this or whatever. And he finally just thought about it, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to ask a question he's never asked before. And he had the husband and wife sitting there, and he said to the husband, he's like, are you having an affair? And the husband, no. Mm-hmm. And he goes, with a physical girl or a virtual? And the husband was like, stopped. You could see he was thinking, and he's like, yes, I am having an affair with a virtual, not obviously maybe one girl, but multiple girls. But that was a good way to, I never heard it put that way before, that no, this is an affair with a virtual girls, whatever. Like that's boil it down. That's what it is. Because like in Bible times, like Athena, the Roman god Athena, I believe her name is, and it was the god of prosperity, of procreation, if I'm saying that right. And you had an affair, you had sex with the priestess, which were women, and so it was open, and that was an affair, and that was super open and for everyone to see or whatever. I heard a pastor say it. Same pastor actually goes that when they brought this temple to Athena, all of a sudden all the men became very religious and like going to this temple every week or whatever. The wives are getting together like, our husbands are all religious all of a sudden at the same time. Anyway, but when he put it that way, and this was after I had already kind of come out of it and crossed the hump, I guess you could say. But I was like, that's a good way to put it for guys. If they open up to me about it or just say I'm struggling with it, especially if they're married, you can say it that way. And not to degrade them, but just because in my mind, like I would repent. I would look at it, I would repent, and I would move on for a week or 2 days, 3 days. And then I would just be frustrated with something, mostly business related, mostly work related, work drama, whatever. And, just home life wasn't great. So, at night I'm looking at it again. And then I'd repent again. And it was just that cycle. Yep. But I think if someone would have kind of helped break it down for me a little bit more, because in my mind, like I said, I repented, so whatever. I'm moving on with my day. But then to really say, because my other thing was like, well, it doesn't. Well, let me back up and say my logic was, and I still would like an answer in heaven when we get to heaven. But like, why in the Old Testament were they allowed to have concubines? Like why? And I believe God realized it wasn't a good idea. So in the New Testament, when Christ, he talks about one man and one woman and being married. But like in the old, I would always fall back to that. Like, Abraham had a concubine. This computer's my concubine. Like that literally was my logic, and it's terrible to think about now. But that was my logic. But I wish someone would have kind of, if I would have, if I would have opened up and said, this is my logic. I'm sorry. I feel bad every time I do it, but like, this is my logic. But if a man would have said to me, well, what about in the New Testament where it talks about not having an affair? Yeah. And nowadays it's virtual more than physical, obviously. Oh, yeah. A lot more because of how accessible it is. And I think I would have sat back and be like, wow, made me think a little bit. Because obviously porn is in the Bible. If I'm not mistaken, pornea, the word pornea is, which is just about a naked woman or a naked image or something around those lines. But like, thou shalt not look at porn was not in the Bible, but you can definitely pull it out of there. Oh, yeah, in certain verses and stuff. But again, my fallback was always, Abraham had a concubine, David had hundreds of concubines, Solomon had, and
wisest man alive, dude.
Yeah, he fell to women, so I can fall a couple times and ask for forgiveness. And of course, that wasn't my mindset starting out, but after viewing it, that would be my mindset. Yep. But now, coming out of it, I see it from a whole new light. And just wish I would have opened up to someone, and again, like I could have easily opened up to my dad, but just the shame there. My mom, of course, but the shame there, and then eventually my wife, and honestly, what kind of started was she found stuff on my phone, but started that. But there wasn't really any real close guys in my life at that time that I felt I could open up with and not have shame. Yeah. Knowing what I know now, I feel like if I would have opened up, and I've actually talked to a couple guys since then, and 3 or 4 of the guys that I was probably comfortable enough opening up with were struggling with it at the time or had struggled. So I'm like, man, if I would have just opened up and, took a guy out to coffee and just said, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, or help me pray with me. And they probably would have opened up and been like, oh, yeah, that was me 2 years ago. I'm like, oh, my word, that would have been. So I think the devil puts us in that shell and puts us in that and shame. But then also the mindset of, like I was saying with the concubines, like there's always several ways to look at it from the person struggling with it, whether I don't want to open because of the shame, but I'm justifying it because of this. So there's a wall on both sides. I don't want to go here because of the shame, but I'm justifying it because of this. So I think as us as men open up, and of course it has to be the right environment, the right place, but
and very much someone you trust.
Yes,
like obviously we've kind of been joking a little bit, but it's like that is a serious matter. Like obviously find someone that you trust with that information, who's not going to blast it to the world and disrespect a very sensitive topic that obviously is hard for you to talk about because it's like, hey, there is some shame attached to that. So yeah, find someone you 100% trust that you can share that with, for sure.
But I can say too, once you share that with, whether it's your wife or whoever, and you're past that, the weight, literally weight and burden is lifted off your shoulder. Yes, there's probably going to be some crying and maybe some yelling and screaming or whatever. I'm just being real with anyone who's struggling with it and hasn't opened up. But like, if that's the least that happens, or the greatest thing that happens, or the worst thing that happens, put it that way, that is like, get past that.
It's
like
minimal for the damage that will have.
I have a friend of mine who said his wife called him, or he opened up to his wife, and she said, if you ever struggle with it again, or if I find you're struggling with it again, we're getting a divorce. So that was the weight she put on him, and he said, he has not, or if he's ever tempted, he talks about it.
Yeah.
But like, that is an extreme. Well, I think it's a good extreme for the men. But like, if the worst you have is your wife or your spouse or your significant other yelling at you, screaming at you, maybe not talking to you for 2-3 days, like, as a man, embrace the suck. Deal with it and move on and grow and learn and ask for help, open up, because I think us as Christian men and us as a nation, we got to get through this, because it's a epidemic that's just spread throughout. And I'll be honest, like, I haven't shared this with a lot of people. Some of the close people I've shared with, and I've shared with George a little bit of my struggle. And the one time I shared it with him was because I was doing a service job in this abandoned house that was like a year abandoned or whatever. And I opened up the utility room, and literally all these porn DVDs fall down.
Dang,
and it's just pictures everywhere. And I picked one up, and I just felt, I picked one up to be like, whoa, what is this? And I just, in that moment, and Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, I was just like, no. It's I've been down this road. It's not worth it. It's not even worth flipping it over and looking at the other picture. So I shoved it in the back, and I put a bunch of DVDs on it, and I put, like, I think it was Willy Wonka on top. Like, I'll just put this
Just
here.
a good old chocolate factory.
And I'm so thankful to the Lord for the strength to do that, because 4 or 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to. I would have opened the thing up. Yeah. I would have flipped through. How many pictures are in here? And honestly, that probably
job would have took you 12 hours.
That probably would have led to me looking at stuff on my phone that night, or that evening, or whatever. But that's just how far the Lord has taken me from, as a Christian Lancaster County boy, out of. And I'm so thankful for the strength of the Lord to say no, and to realize that it's just not worth it. And you can say no, and you can fall and fail, and there's grace and mercy for you in that moment. But the biggest thing is to turn around. The Bible says about forgiving someone 70 times 7. That's 490 times. But the Bible also says that the righteous, I think it's in Proverbs, lift themselves up or bring themselves up out of the mud. Yeah. And that's the difference between the righteous and the unrighteous. The unrighteous stay down, whereas the righteous will ask for help, or will bring themselves out of the mire and the muck and the mud. I got to look up that. I got to get better with my references.
Dude, I suck.
It's in there somewhere. Siri version.
Even honestly, okay, so this is something, and I feel like, so the statistics, and this isn't even like Christian statistics, but like, as a whole society, like, people are having less sex than ever, just because of the whole porn epidemic and everything. But even just like, I love movies, I love TV shows, I love video games. Within all of that, and I think, like, you can go into the conspiracy of how Hollywood controls the world and everything like that type deal. But what I will say is the best story, shows, movies, and everything have the most sex.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. Phenomenal. And now I haven't watched it.
No, I haven't either. But like,
clips
of it are all over.
And like, everyone says how phenomenal of a show it is, which I would probably agree with if I would watch it. Like, I love a good story. And it's like, then they just sprinkle that in there. Like The Witcher, which is based off a video game. I have watched that whole series. Horrible. Like, so much just filth in it, but it's a phenomenal story. Like, even
God of War is God of, it's like,
it's a great video game, and it's just littered with it. And it's like, all the best stuff and the most compelling story always has the most. And I think there is something to say about that, where it's just like, it is very easy, because it is like, okay, it's 5, or not even 5 minutes. It's a minute here, it's a minute there, within 40 hours
Yeah.
of whatever, your show, your video game, whatever. So you can justify it very easily because you're like, dude, it's such a good story. I can just fast forward this. But I think, at least for me, what it does personally, it numbs you to it.
Yeah.
And then you're fine, looking it up later. Or that trigger then takes you down that dark road or whatever. But it's like all the best story-driven stuff I've found has just a plethora. And I feel like, honestly, I don't know if this is like a redeeming factor or anything, but like Top Gun Maverick was one of the best movies. It didn't have any of that. And I feel like people just appreciated that. Yeah. And maybe it was just every conservative dude and like wife was just happy that something came out that was still a good story. But like, I don't know. Maybe that's a redeeming factor. Like, still hope. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's good. I heard, for some reason, whatever, with you just talking about what you were, made me think of, I know what it was. How it's sprinkled throughout in stories and video games and movies and that kind of thing. And I was thinking of David. So David obviously slept with Bathsheba and everything. But then if you remember, Absalom, his son, slept with his sister-in-law.
Bible's wild stuff.
Yeah. So what I heard a really good point to this, and I was looking it up because I'm tired of not having references, but it's in 2 Samuel, and I don't necessarily read it, but I just wanted to give a reference. 2 Samuel 16:22. Anyway, 2 Samuel, I believe, is where the story is. Absalom, and I wanted to get the son's name right. Absalom sleeps with his sister-in-law, technically, but that's the one where he pretends, if I'm not mistaken, he pretends to be sick. She comes in to take care of him, and then he rapes her, basically, sleeps with her. And I heard a pastor share how you don't hear him being reprimanded or corrected by David in any way, shape, or form. Why? And the biggest reason why is because he did the same thing.
Yeah.
And he realizes that, and this is where I'm so thankful, and I pray I have the eyes to see for my son. But David saw his son Absalom doing the same things he did, and didn't reprimand him for it because he had committed those same things, and was probably, and the preacher was speculating, but he was probably heartbroken that he didn't raise his son better. Yeah. That he didn't share the signs or symptoms of what not to do or how to turn. And so that's why I pray in learning that from that story and the insights in that with my son to pass on when he's ready. Like you were saying, it's awesome. Like pornography can be great. Like in the moment, like it is so, because everything's at your fingertips. You can see what you want, look up what you want, whatever. But the whirlwind you're going to reap, and the heartache and the pain, and say possibly your salvation. We can get a whole nother story there, but just the testimony that can be ripped from you in going down that road. It's just like with Absalom, and I don't remember exactly what happened to Absalom at the very end, but like David must have been so torn to see that same sin come back full. I mean, he was still punished. Yep. David was punished for sleeping with Bathsheba. He lost the baby. They had the plague go through and kill all those people. So he actually, lost or had two forms of punishment. But the third, and it's not really Bible doesn't say this, but if you think about it, his son doing the same act he did, and how that must have tore David up and torn him apart. And I think us as a Christians and as a nation need to learn from that and say, what was David's problem or issue? Maybe. Let's assume didn't talk about his sons, wasn't there for his children, wasn't raising them in the fear of the Lord and the way he should have been. Yes, he had concubines. He was out, fighting the Philistines and all that kind of thing. And it goes back to being that hero at home. And, because you hear different pastors and preachers that go around preaching all the world, but then their children are living in sin and to each their own. We all have a personal relationship with Christ. We can't hold our children to be Christians and absolute. But just the heartache that David must have felt for his son, and the fact that he wasn't taught, that didn't teach them those warning signs. And even Solomon was David's son. And what did he have? 600 concubines, 1,000 concubines, hundreds of concubines at least, and he fell to women.
A lot of women.
You know, and you see this trend, and going off on another little tangent, but I listened to a podcast the last year, I guess, and it's called Exorcist Files.
Okay.
It's dramatized exorcisms that, well, basically, let me back up. It's a priest that tells his stories, and he has a journal of these exorcisms he does, but he goes through the backstory of these folks that come to him and need a demon, removed from the home or out of their lives. I say all that to say he shares that the devil and demons know us better than we know ourselves. Not only that, demons, to my knowledge and biblically, don't die. We die. They live forever. He shares a story where he was casting out a demon that claims he was part of something happened in 1320 or something like that with the Catholic Church. Anyway, some stuff to think about. But I say all to say that the devil knows our weaknesses, and his minions, the demons, know our weaknesses, and they try the same thing with every generation over and over and over again. And we as humans need to smarten up and say, hey, David fell to this, Solomon, Absalom, or whatever. My dad, I did. I want to save you from this and tell you the lessons I've learned and things to avoid. And of course, with my dad wouldn't know technology as I do, but yeah, just things that we need to pass down to our children that to save them from that heartache and that pain, and kind of learn from David and Absalom, and what they went through and how they went through it.
Yep.
Anyway, that was a long rant.
Abstinence, not Absalom. Just a little joke. That was stupid. Yeah, no, and that's the thing too. Like, even in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. It's like the sin is still the exact same, just the package it's delivered in has changed a little bit.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's nothing new. Like, the devil has no new tactics. It's all the same stuff.
And it works. So
yeah,
why
100%. Why change it? For him, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's horrible, but true. Sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that was a long tangent, but a good one.
One story that, as a victory story, is Joseph. What did Potiphar's wife try to seduce him? Yeah. What does he do? Runs away. He just turns and runs away. And
that's why I'm running that marathon, dude. Get away from freaking Potiphar's wife.
Correct. Bible scholars have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only sin in the Bible, I think I got this right. The only sin in the Bible that Jesus or the Bible says to flee is sexual immorality. It's the only one the Bible says to flee from, to turn and actually run from. All others, it's abstain or thou shalt not or don't do, but it's the only one that says to flee from. Huh. And I believe the Hebrew is to actually turn your back, like Joseph, and run the other direction.
Get out of there.
Anyway, Bible study for another podcast. But
yeah, dude. Interesting. Good stuff. What do you got on time?
I have 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. So we got. Oh, it's 10:01. No, I'm saying. not that I want to know the time. What are you on time?
Like, what am I on time?
Yeah, like.
I'm late.
Yeah, like, do you want to wrap this up? That's what I'm asking. No. Oh, okay.
I'm a bachelor this week.
Yeah, okay, dude. Yeah. And be in the company of good men.
My wife did FaceTime me, so I'm assuming she's calling to say goodnight. Hey, honey, is your podcast over 3 minutes ago?
All right, well, you want to take a little break, give her a text?
Sure.
I'll get a drink, and then we'll come back to it?
Sure.
Love it. All right, and we're back after the break. Where were we? Refresh my brain. We traveled down the route. Okay, one more thing just to close out the whole pornography train. I know I said in the beginning where it was like, hey, teaching the kids, hey, be honest about kind of your experience and everything. Also, equally important that you follow up with this, the repercussions that it has. Because it does have serious repercussions within your marriage and all those things. And then the downfalls of it. It's that high time. It's that instant gratification. And then realize afterwards the ugliness, the truthfulness of actually what it is and the sin it is. Equally as important.
Yeah.
So for all of the people listening, like, oh, dude, this guy thinks it's freaking rocking. No, you think that in your immaturity, then you get into the effects. And sometimes it doesn't come out till 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, the negative repercussions and the sin nature of all that. So
not only that, I'm glad you brought that up, but so with that, and I can't remember the chemical release in your brain that happens, but dopamine. Thank you. I was going to say, dopamine. Wasn't going to say dopamine, but yeah, that's what it is. So and I can attest to this because that's where it was it started with something little, a picture, a video, real simple. That was the dopamine release would happen. And then the pictures had to be more intense. The videos had to be longer. Anyway, I say all that to say that the same pastor I listened to about the counseling session and the questions he had shares, and it's really a testament to where our nation is, that it gets to the point where it's not only women, then it has to be men and women, then it has to be children. And America, and since Sound of Freedom, this is a pretty common statistic, at least I've heard it a couple times, America is the number one consumer of child pornography. And this pastor that I listened to, his name's Chris Swanson of Calvary Chapel, Chester Springs. He has counseled or heard of counselings, something along the lines of boys, young men, 20, 21, looking at things and literally not being able to be intimate with, they're getting married and not being able to be intimate with their spouse, and Viagra doesn't do it. It gets to the point where even stuff with their wife, having intimacy with their wife isn't good enough and isn't. So it's a whole, and that's why I called it an epidemic, because it's an untalked about, undiscussed epidemic that is completely under the radar if it's not discussed, obviously. But just the fact that it takes more and more and greater and greater portions of it, different aspects of it. And you can just go down a whole more rabbit trails of that. But it should be eye-opening, frightening, I guess should be the word.
Yeah, for sure.
For Americans and on our society and our environment to be alerted to that, and eyes to be open to the repercussions of it. And what you said, repercussions, that made me think of it, that it's not just what it can do to your marriage, but what it can do to you physically, and what you need to view or look or consume to excite you. Yeah. And yeah, it's a dark path for sure, and a path that this country is on, unfortunately. But yeah, anyway.
My mom always used to say, and I would get so pissed at her for saying it because I thought it was stupid back in the day, as you get older, you will realize your parents were a little wiser than you'd like to admit. But she would always say, it'll take you farther than you want to go, and it'll keep you for longer than you want to stay.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I was like, oh, shut up, I'm going to go drink, or whatever stupid thing I was going to get into. And then you get older and you realize, nuts, she was right. But yeah, anywho, wrapping up kind of that session on that phenomenal session. Glad we didn't expect to go there, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah, sorry, you're normally a very lighthearted podcast.
Yeah, no, we went to the depths, baby. Started battling Beelzebub down there, dude. Holy.
Well, some of the best podcasts are just the honest ones,
That's right. And
I don't know what made me share it. You asked, that's right. You asked about, was there any, you said financial or
dark times.
Yeah, dark times or like regrets for running the business. And I don't know. I mean, I believe God's in everything. But yeah, it's just the Lord put that on my heart to share, my mind to share. And I was like, I'm going to share it. But yeah.
And that's why I like not planning out episodes. Like, I don't plan any of this. Like, nothing's scripted.
That's not true. 4th of July, you had those.
4th of July, we had the rompers.
No. Oh, yeah, it's true. You had the rompers, but no, you had the questions for your buddy of like how many fireworks.
Yeah, that's about the maximum amount of effort and research I put into it. I Google searched something 3 minutes before he showed up. Generally for the episodes, it's just kind of whatever we want to talk about, whatever we feel, whatever the good Lord leads.
Yep.
So dark times in business equating to dark times within the life, and then kind of going through the business, getting to a point of, let's say, so Alex Hermosi says this thing, and I'm sure I said it on here before. He says, and I can fully attest to this, starting something, you have, he makes it like a circle. And he said, you have uninformed optimism when you start something. So like with you, with your business, or me with this podcast, like, okay, hey, what a great idea. Like, I should start a podcast. There's only upsides. There's no downsides. You get to talk to people. It's fun. Like, you have all these things, yada, yada. You'll be rich. You'll be merry. You'll be happy. And then he says, after you start and you continue down that path, you come to a place called informed pessimism. And he's like, that's when you start to realize, this isn't as easy as I thought. There was some things where it's like, not exactly what I expected. It's a little harder than I expected. And then he said there's a thing called the pit of despair. And he's like, that's where pretty much everyone gives up. And he says, that's like when you're down in it and just like, dude, I'm done. And then what happens is you start your new thing and you go through that cycle and you go through that cycle and you continuously give up. But he said, if you can get through the pit of despair, then at some point you become, after you do the thing and you do the thing and you get better at it and you get better at it. Because obviously, when you start something new, you suck at it. Like, that's just how it is. Like, generally, even like Ed Sheeran, which is like a super good musically, like songwriter, phenomenal. He said, he's like, there is no such thing as born talent. And he plays a clip of him when he was younger and like atrocious. And he said, but at some point, like, you just put in that much work that you suck less and you suck less, and then you finally realize you're good. And he says, and then at that point, going back to Alex Hermosi, you get to the point where it's informed optimism, when you realize you're good, and then like you can then succeed. And then he's like, and then something else comes up within your business or whatever you started, and you just go through that cycle again, and then it's this pit of despair, informed optimism type deal. So within that, now we went through kind of the pit, the lows. What was the highs? Like, was there a point where it's like my work has paid off? Or was there a point like that? Was there a specific time where you're like, okay, yeah, hey, maybe like the past 8 years or whatever it was for you, like, yeah, it was worth it. That sacrifice or whatever, it was worth it. Did you have a point like that? Was there a pivotal moment or anything like that?
I wouldn't say a pivotal moment. Kind of going back to husbands and providers, I felt, well, my wife, when she was able to quit her job and be a mom, like that was a accomplishment on my mind, because I always wanted that from my wife. If she didn't want to work, she didn't have to. So I felt like that was awesome. I was so glad she was able to do that. Financially, we were able to stay afloat and do that. And then providing work for others, that was always something that I enjoyed doing. And then that prevents, or that has its own weight and burden of itself, because it's like, oh, now other families, other households depend on you providing work, or you doing a good job, or you estimating well, whatever the case is. But that was cool to have my own business, something I started from scratch. That was always great. And there's always those times where it's like, I want to blow this out of the water and grow real big and grow fast or whatever. Yeah. But then that has its own, set of circumstances and challenges and stuff. And I kind of did that. I did kind of not blow up. I hired like 3 guys in 1 year, if I'm not mistaken, and it was just me in the office. So I was stressed, and that was probably the time of the low with pornography. I was stressed out the wazoo. I had all these estimates to go, all these jobs to go, no one else in the office to help with it. So it was all on me. And I like to say office work is, for our kind of business, is the grease to keep the gears going. Yep. If you stop estimating, you stop invoicing, the work stops, you stop doing the work, and then the finance or the financial input, the money starts coming in, you can't pay your workers. It's all one big wheel that the grease has to keep moving. So, but back to your question, I can't say there was a particular high in my business. I know in 2019 I downsized and we got rid of all employees, which I had 4 full-time, and then 5 full-time. 4 full-time, 1 part-time.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. I can't remember what business am I talking about here. No. And then we had 2 guys give their 2 weeks within a month of each other. And then I basically, my wife and I talked about it, prayed about it, and we decided to just downsize. At that point, my son was 2.5, 3 years old. So downsize to just me. And that was really fun, and I kind of felt like semi-retired because it was like no one then depended on me other than my family. I had tons of work. I could literally say no to stuff I didn't want or knew I couldn't get to, or just didn't. It was whatever too big for me. I didn't have guys that I knew like didn't enjoy that kind of work. I just was like, if I don't enjoy it, I don't have to do it or whatever. So that was really cool. That was 3 to 3.5 years of that. And then, then George approached me in August of 2023 about joining the team and GH and stuff. And then my wife and I prayed about it, thought about it, and decided to go down that road. And that's been awesome. I really, really glad we joined GH and the team behind not behind me, but the team that I work with now. It's much more of a team effort, and there's people around. It's not just me. All the weight isn't on my shoulders to get stuff done. We can kind of distribute the burden or the responsibility. Yep. So that's been huge. And that was a high. If I had to boil it down, that would say I would definitely a high when he approached me, and the fact that I made an imprint to you guys and to him, like, hey, this is a company we could do well, bringing on board or bringing Matt on board to manage the service department. And that's what I enjoy. So it was a win-win for me. I felt like I wasn't like he was bringing me on to help with all the different departments. Obviously, we spread ourselves out when we have to. But if I can do what I enjoy and not much changes on my end as far as from the customer standpoint to me, that'd be great. And then if I have help on the back end with phone calls, scheduling, that's great too. And someone who's better at it, faster at it, that's great. So, that was probably a pretty pivotal point and high point. And then right now, I feel like we're still riding that high, and the growth and expansion, moving the shop, like all of that is just. I told George this, that it's a growth period. The business is in a stepping stones of building, becoming more well known, putting on community days. Like that's all part of it, and I feel like. Not to be too ambitious and want to grow too fast, because I feel then the foundation isn't very thick or very big, but laying a really good foundation, establishing, managers and that kind of thing, that's going to be so important to then bringing on new employees to stand on those managers and that foundation that's built. So, yeah.
And that's something too, even with this podcast and everything, like the desire of, I'm going to say fame. I use that term loosely though, like the desire to grow at a rapid rate. So and I think what happens, and like even with your business and now with George as well, like it generally a healthy business, and I could be totally wrong in this because I don't know business, but like you have kind of your, like the first couple years, it's very slow and kind of you peak up. And then at some point, it seems like everything just clicks, and then you really start ramping up. But I feel like even now, like with the instant gratification and everything, it's like there's always hacks. Like everyone's got a hack. Like, oh, do this hack and you'll blow up. But it's like, no, if you just consistently, and like I struggle with this because it's like I fall trapped to that crap all the time, even though I know it's like garbage. Like I'll still fall to it, be like, oh yeah, maybe I should do this hack and get like 20,000. But it's like, no, if you just consistently put out a good product and like get better from every, like for me, it's just the goal, like, hey, no matter how many views you get, no matter how many whatever followers, subscribers, whatever you have, each video there's something better than the last one. Like Maybe your lighting's better. Maybe the production quality, the editing's better. Your speaking's better. Your cadence, whatever it is, get a little bit better each video, and the growth will come. And I feel like even with you coming on board, with kind of us with community days, like I would say that was a monumentous event for us. Like that was insane. That was so cool to see. I loved just how everyone kind of came together and put that on. But it's like in that, and George and you do a very good job of casting the vision of like, no, it's not about how fast we can grow. It's about doing a phenomenal job, and the growth will come. Like even with community days, it was never like, let's promote this so like we can. It's like, no, hey, how can we help out these people? How can we help out these people? How can everyone that comes to this event gather or gain a benefit from it?
Yeah.
And yeah, that even for me, just being a little bit farther back in life than you, or not as far along as you and George, it's like that's even a good stepping stone for even me doing this. Like, no, like you don't need the hack. Like you don't need 100,000 subscribers tomorrow. You just need to get better than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And like as long as you're slowly doing that, like yes, it will be slow, and it will be probably 3, 4, 5 years of no one really listening and like that, and then like it's just like putting in that work. Like everyone, and now yes, obviously with like where technology is, like you can blow up overnight. But then that comes with its whole different things, and it's like, do you actually really want that? Like,
Yeah.
And I don't think growth is a bad thing. Like even with your business and then where GH was maybe 3 years ago, we were like, hey, we don't want to grow. Like our profit margins are pretty good. The headaches are minimal. Let's just stay here. But growth is natural in a living organism. And it's like, if you are a living, healthy organism, you're going to grow. So then it's like, okay, how do we grow in a healthy pace maybe, or a healthy manner? Because yeah, growth can look differently. You can get 20 more guys in 1 year, and that's still a healthy growth, dependent on if you have the right systems in place and everything. But in saying all that jargon, with coming on board, now we're getting into the juicy stuff. With coming on board to GH, you having a business of your own for 10 plus years, and then stepping into another business, what does that, because even for me, I'm a very laid back person until it comes into something like art or something, and like something I'm very good at that someone tries to help me with. It's like, dude, piss off. Like, I have this. You're not gonna do it to the quality I want and all that. So from my experience, like I just know there would be things in my life where it's like that would be a tricky path to walk. And I know me and you have obviously already talked about some of the stuff within the office, like where it's like, oh yeah, hey, like, no, obviously it's going to be like hard for you and hard for me to come to a certain point on this, because you have been doing it on your own, and you built something to a level that was like very proficient. And now we also built something, and then like merging those two, like what is that experience like for you? Because I personally haven't experienced anything where I've built and then had to merge it with something else. Like, obviously it's tricky. I think it's going well, and I think as long as you have open lines of communication, it does. But like for you, is there one thing that's like, it's like tricky or weird?
I would say really the only thing that's kind of been weird is not knowing, and this is kind of something you and I shared a little bit, well, like with emails, CCing me in on them and the response to the customers with estimates, but like not knowing when a job is complete or an estimate is completed or a phone call is returned all the time. I mean, generally I am made aware, like, hey, I call them back or I emailed them or text, but like there's some that hit me like, oh wait, I haven't heard, did we actually get back to them? And I had one customer say like, and it was kind of a compliment, but also triggered them to saying something wasn't quite right, where they didn't get a call back within 24 hours or something, and they were like, Matt, that's not Matt. So something, either he didn't get the message or the office didn't get the message or whatever, so I'm going to call or text back or email back. So that's, and I know it's just a matter of me letting go of certain aspects of the business, but then other aspects is I want us to be a quick response. Quick response within 24 hours, whether it's text, email. For some people, maybe that's a long response, but that was always my standard with LifeFlow. But yeah, that's just been a transition of me just saying, or not knowing when that response happens, but trusting that it's happening at a certain time. And if it bugs me and I can't think otherwise, then I'll just text or email someone in the office, say, hey, did we get back to this person, or let them know. But I also don't want to be a helicopter owner either, helicopter parenting, or hovering and saying you have to text them back now, or did you text them back, because that gets super annoying as well. But I would say that's probably the biggest hurdle that I've kind of had to overcome. And I'm not overcame it fully yet, but just understanding that, hey, if it is that big of a deal, because I guess I've been burnt so many times with customers not using me with LifeFlow because I didn't get back in a timely manner, or I sent them an email sent them an estimate via email and they never got it because it went to spam, and then I find out 2 weeks later they went with someone else. Would have went with me, but I didn't email them back, so they thought I wasn't interested. I'm like, oh, so that, and I'm kind of a person that, like, if something hits me hard the first time, I will try to always. So, like, for example, if I send an email to a customer, it goes to spam, and I really wanted that job. Like, every time after that, in my mind, I will always text and be like, hey, did you get the email? Did you get the email? Even though the customer, like, I think about this afterwards, like, the customer I have emailed before, but I still will send the estimate and text them to make sure they got the email. But I'm like, I know I got a good email. I know they get, but just like whatever you want to call it, the anxiety of them possibly not getting it drives me nuts. So I want to make sure they get it. Anyway, so that's just something that I've been learning to let go. And if it's that big a deal, or if it's meant to happen, it will happen. Or if it's that big a deal, the customer will reach back out to us and ask for it. So that's probably about it. That's about it. Yeah.
And I think that's, like, not that in some ways it overlaps, but, like, even just with what you're saying, and, like, the two people or two different companies, obviously more than just two people are involved, but have built something up to a standard or a practice, and then marrying those two together, it's almost like a marriage.
Yeah.
Like, where it's like, you have been raised for 20 years or whatever, how long it's been before you get married, and this other person has been raised, and it's like you have those differences where it's like, okay, now we need to just figure out, like, how do we marry these two? What is important? Like, because you also don't realize, and I'm not just ripping on my family, I'm saying all families across the world, how weird your family is until you get someone else in, like, that close proximity with you. It's like, oh no, this is normal. No, it's freaking not. What are you saying? Like, there's been so many instances where it's either, my wife says that to me or I say that to her. It's like, no, like, this is not what other people do. And it's just like that open communication of, and it's that weird, like, okay, so, like, is what you're saying, because obviously you want to respect, you want to love the other person, and it's like, is this actually important? How important is it? There's definitely, like, levels to grade all that stuff in, and it's just that communication and that constant tweaking of, like, okay, hey, micro adjustment here, maybe we corrected too far, bring it back a little bit. And I honestly feel like when two businesses merge, it is like a legitimate, not a marriage, but, like, there is definitely overlaps of that, where it's like, because for you, you've built something that has flourished for 10 years. You have all your own systems, and then it's like, and you at the end were, like, totally by yourself. So it's like you had control over every aspect. When coming to a business where it's like George was there, then he relinquished control in certain aspects of the business, and then it's like, you guys kind of went through the exact same transition, just you hit it all at once. Where he slowly worked out of it, and that was really hard for him. And then it's like you came in, and it's like, dude, you had to deal with that in a snap of a finger, and, like, oh shoot, like, let's let's talk about this. So yeah, I understand that would be crazy in certain aspects.
And that's what our attorney actually told us, like when we were signing the final documents, paperwork, was he's like, well, basically this is a marriage. Like he tells I believe he said he tells all business mergers or operation agreement is what we were signing, but he tells all of them that this is essentially a marriage. There's the legal or literally the marriage license is similar. There's some similar wordings. And
Really?
It's kind of similar in that, you're agreeing that if you have a disagreement to a certain extent, you're willing to settle outside of court, but if it leads to court, anyway, so he was like, that has to be a good merger of ideas. You have to be, similar business models, which, George and I both do. We both debt free, run our business debt free as much as possible. Very similar standards for work. We have similar tools. Like it just kind of goes down the spectrum. Run a lot of stuff similar. I trust him, he trusts me, and it can even go back to our upbringing. We were raised kind of more conservative, and in the Lancaster County area. Anyway, so you can go on and on and on and on. And it really was a good. And I was actually at a point. I think I told George this, like June, probably like May, June of 2023, I was kind of like, all right, God, like I've been running this by myself for 3 years now. Like, what's the next thing? Like, do I hire people? I've been down that road and I can do it all over again. I think I would do it differently or kind of have different standards for people that I would hire. But like, what's my next? And so that was kind of like a prayer of mine, and like I call it like a back burner prayer. Yeah. Like, what's the next move? What's the next move? Probably, May, June, July, and then August, end of August, George approached me. I'm like, this is the next move. And then I had multiple people come to me about buying my business or becoming partners or just liquidating it and becoming an employee, but none of that really interested me. And I never thought George or anything like that. And then when he approached me, I was like, this is like a no-brainer for me, and I think it would be pretty natural in how it would go together. Anyway, so it was really, really neat how the Lord worked that all together, but it's really a merger. And they say, best friends sometimes make the best partners because they're similar mindset, or they can be similar mindset. I know my brother-in-law, him and his best friend went into business together doing chiropractic work.
Oh, yeah?
And, they were roommates. They started as roommates in the same school and then did chiropractic school and then ended up going on their own. But, like, they're like brothers. I mean, they both don't have brothers, if I'm not mistaken. I know the one, my wife's brother-in-law doesn't, but I don't know if the other. Anyway, but they're like brothers, and they talk about everything. They live two doors down from each other, and they go through
close to
everything
a band name right
there. Yeah. So anyway, but similar mindset, similar upbringing, all that is huge in merging businesses, and obviously different personalities.
For sure.
And that's always good too, as long as those personalities don't clank heads all the time. I think kind of iron sharpening iron, those sparks are going to fly, but as long as in the end you get a better product or a better business model or whatever, that's what matters. So
better outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something too, which like I was talking to George about. He's like, in just talking with him with the partnership and everything, he's like, you don't want someone that's good at the exact same thing you're good at.
Yeah.
Because he's like, then you will clank heads because you think you're the best and they think they're the best, and because you're both very good at this one thing. And he's like, you want people where it's like you complement, where it's, hey, you're good at this and I'm good at this, and it pairs well with each other. And that made a lot of sense to me. I was like, oh yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I can understand that. No, I'm stoked. I think even with where the business is, it's in that upward trend right now. And with Community Days, that was an absolute highlight. That was so cool. And just being able to put that on and realizing, because even talking with George about it a little bit, he was like, plumbing is like the most unflattering job you can do. It's gross most of the time. Generally, even if you're in a nice house, you're not in a nice part of the house. Like, you're in a crawl space or you're in the basement and it's dirty and it's mucky. And it's like, even at doing that, you can still like there's still more.
Yeah.
Like it's not just that task.
Right.
And even with putting that on, it was just like, even through plumbing, like, not that it's the coolest event locally, but it's the freaking coolest event locally. Like, and you can still do that even though, I don't know, I don't know, if it fried me up. Like, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and how many other companies are doing anything like that? You know, it's like job fairs, sure, that kind of thing, or a fairground where the vendors come to the fair, but an actual company putting on a community event for the community, for a community to participate in. And that's where I was on Monday's meeting. I was saying about like halfway through the day, I was trying to sell people water heaters, but I'm like, no, like, I don't mind selling a water heater, but that shouldn't be my push. This is a day for our customers. Appreciate them. Thank them. Put this all on for them. And, they're already our customers. So if they need a water heater, they're going to call us, educating them. And that's kind of, I shifted from trying to sell to, I'm just going to educate on this is a product that's available, a water heater that's available. This is what your water heater looks like inside. Like, and even for plumbers, like there was a, he wasn't a plumber, but he was a builder that was there, and he never seen an inside of a water heater, and it blew him away. Like, oh wow, like what's this? And anyway, so I was able to educate him on it, and he's actually one that wants us to service his water heater and do annual maintenance. So it's perfect. That's exactly why I had that there. But yeah, halfway through the day, it was like, no, this day is more for the customers. Thank you for them, giving back to them. And appreciating them. So I think, I've heard all good things. I haven't heard any negative from anybody yet on the day and how it went.
Nope.
So I was super stoked about
Perfect event. In that, just one question, I guess, came to my mind. Like, what was the thing, and I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, that, like, in the process and the prayer of joining GH and merging with them, was there something where it's like, okay, like what made that appealing? What made you even want to do that? Because I know you said, and I know like work ethic and the similar upbringing, but there's, like you said, there's been other businesses that have approached you and like that wasn't even a thought. So why GH, I guess? I'd
say probably the biggest thing was I felt like we were on, like you just said, a similar trajectory, a similar path, smaller company. A lot of the companies that approached me, one either wanted to buy me out and be a franchise, me to be a franchise, or buy me out and just have absolutely no say in the business. So buy me out and I'd be an employee. Yeah. So no say, no. And when George approached me as being a partner, and building this together, I saw it as an opportunity to grow as a business, investment opportunity. So like a business mindset of growing and investing in the company, bringing money forward, but then also that growing into something pretty immediately, like within the next 12 months, 6 months, growing into a larger monetary value than when we started. And obviously that's not my full 100% goal or the end goal, but it's part of it. For sure. And obviously for sure. A good business move. And yeah, so I kind of felt like it was GH was at a growth period, and a similar, like I say, trajectory and similar place that I was, and working with everyone on a pretty regular basis, jobs back and forth, communicating on the phone. I felt like it was a pretty somewhat seamless move to do that. So. And everyone else, like I said, was just like, oh, we'll buy you out, or we'll throw customers your way, or you won't have any say because you'll just be an employee here, or that kind of thing. So, did you have any like super appealing financial offers where it's like, dang, that'd be sweet? No, but then it's like almost selling your soul type deal. Yeah, no, I never pursued it. It was an email, or I had one guy called me. And an email, and I honestly just kind of shot it down pretty quick. I was like, no, I'm not interested, or no, thank you. The one guy that called me was the franchise was Rabbit Rooter. Oh, not Rotor Rooter. It was like Rabbit something. Yeah, I forget what their name is. They were trying to start moving up the East Coast. They have a couple locations. I think one in Harrisburg or Reading, and they wanted one in Lancaster. And he's like, I Googled you and saw that you're really good Google reviews. So like we want to work with companies that are reputable. So, where are you at? What kind of numbers do you do? How many employees? And I was like, oh, it's just me. He's like, just you? He's like, oh, you running a business? So yeah, it's just me. Anyway, and then I shot it down because, again, it was a franchise. I would literally be bought out by them and then pay them franchise fees, franchise membership.
No way.
Yeah, you pay.
Really?
Almost any franchise you see, Roto-Rooter, Subway, McDonald's, they all pay so much of their, I'm not sure exactly what it is. It might be like 10-12% of earnings, weekly, monthly, daily, go to the franchise
like the corporate.
Yeah.
Dang.
So that's part of it. And again, my name, Lifeflow, would be completely inked out.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, and you, even as a franchise, you don't have a lot of 100% say. You can try to, say, I want to move this way or buy this vehicle, whatever. But as far as I understand, a lot of it still has to go to corporate to get approval. So it's like having a boss.
Yeah.
So it didn't appeal to me at all. But I was thankful for the gentleman to call me and to give me the one thing he did say was, well, every customer you don't get is going to your competitor. And he said, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I'm like, well, I'm like sustaining. Like, I don't think I'm dying as a company, as a business. I'm kind of more sustaining. But anyway, that was just one comment he had that kind of stuck with me. And then when George approached me, I'm like, well, there's a good opportunity to grow. And I kind of felt
Get wrecked, Rabbit Rooter.
Yeah. I kind of felt like with where I was at LifeFlow was a standstill. And like I said, it was just that jump to hire again. But then again, it was just me in the office. So I really felt I was at a rock and a hard place. And then, like I said, when George approached me, it was like, okay, this is great. I can grow, or I can help a business grow, be a good key player in the business, have some say in the business, and, go from there. So,
nice.
That's really what appealed to me.
Sweet. Well, we are honestly almost approaching 11 o'clock, so I want to go let you get to bed. One last thing, which I just thought of. Would you, as someone that has went through the ranks of grunt man to then journeyman's master plumber, now owning your own business to a partner of a larger business, would you say in today's society, even with the, I guess, not push, but the emphasis more on the tech, on the influencer maybe lifestyle, the white collar jobs, would you still say blue collar trade work for younger kids would be like a super viable option?
Yes, and it's funny you bring that up because I've been kind of saying this little spiel the last probably year. I actually haven't been there for a while, but I am a part of OAC, which is Occupational Awareness Occupational Awareness Committee for VOTEC for CTC.
Okay, yeah.
And basically, we a team of professionals, business owners, plumbers get together. And there's 10, 12 of us. We go in twice a year to VOTEC, and we look over what the guys are learning, guys or girls are learning, and kind of give our input. So I kind of see where the like we talk to the teacher, how many students, whatever. I put in perspective when I was there at CTC in 2009, there was 22 students with a waiting list, one teacher, and that was pretty much across the board: masonry, framing, carpentry. The last time I was at the occupational committee, there's one teacher. 10 to 12 students, no waiting list.
Really?
To my knowledge, no waiting list. And that is across the board for most HVAC,
trade,
masonry,
jobs.
trades. And maybe things have changed a little bit, but the last time I was there, and it was about a year and a half ago now, I'm hoping to get to this fall's meeting. But now then you look at CAD drawing, drafting, that kind of thing. 2 teachers, 40 students. Yeah. So there's a push there. Not only that, but the baby boomer generation, which is the second largest to, is it generation? The millennials is like the next biggest one, I think, or something along those lines. Anyway, baby boomers are starting to retire.
Yep.
55, 60-year-olds. So you have a high demand job with a lot of baby boomers in that industry, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, starting to retire, and then you have supply and demand. You have a less supply coming in.
Yeah.
So I told a customer the other day, I was like, I predict in 10 years, you're going to have plumbers, kind of your blue collar workers making as much as doctors today in 10 years.
Yeah.
Because the demand
Will be
people
so
aren't getting in. Young people aren't getting into it, and now maybe more will as the money increases. And it's like, wow, you can make a lot of money, or charge a lot or whatever. Maybe the dynamic will change in a couple of years.
For sure.
But for what I'm seeing, and my prediction is, you can make some really, really good money in the next couple of years, even as a laborer or journeyman plumber in this industry, because more and more, like I said, more and more companies are going out of business, retiring, whatever. So that gives growth for smaller businesses or bigger businesses to buy out those smaller businesses. But I predict that the income for your blue collar worker, your labor layman will be greatly increased in the next 10 years.
Yep. Interesting. Well, then I'm due for a pay raise, people. You heard it from the boss. So I'll be looking for that in the next check. Awesome. Honestly, that's a ton of time. I super appreciate you coming on, Matt. For the first guest speaker, I guess. Guest? I don't know what it is. We'll figure it out. Ricky Rudd, we literally went like 3 hours, so that's insane.
Wow.
Didn't feel like 3 hours, though.
No.
Time flies when you're having fun. You're talking about freaking plumbing, dude. So, Ricky Rudd, thank you, Matt. For everyone on here, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube. Listen to it wherever you listen to it. If you want to like and subscribe, do that. If you want to sponsor, just sponsor. Just start throwing money.
Merch.
At it,
You have merch. I think you have merch, right?
Yes. Well, we should do another giveaway. Put in the comments if you want to do another giveaway. We'll start giving away some more free merch. I should make hats, though. I have a sweet hat person. So if you want new hats and everything, let me know, and we'll start giving those suckers away as well. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and peace out, Girl Scout.